Welcome to Legion of Myths Game Master Insight. Tonight, our panel of seasoned tabletop RPG veterans dives headfirst into personal stories, bold expectations, and powerful insights. Get ready to ignite your imagination and elevate your next gaming session. All right, welcome to Legion of Myths Game Master Insight. I am your host, John Maxley-Oshlow, and I am truly grateful you are with us for tonight's discussion. So, Game Master Insight is a forum where our panelists share experiences, ideas, advice on tonight's topic of class-based versus skill-based tabletop RPGs, highlighting their unique perspectives and expectations. And of course, I sincerely hope you enjoy this conversation. Just a special shout out to our first-time viewers out there. I really hope you enjoy this video. Share it with your friends and come back again if you like what you see. I got a headache, so this might not be the best show, but we'll find out. Please consider supporting Legion of Myth through the links in the live stream's description. Rumble rants and super chats of less than $20 I will read at the end of each segment. $20 or more, I will interrupt the segment to read your rant or chat as immediately as I can. And $50 or more, I will take a drink in your... Ooh, drinking tonight might get rid of the headache. I'll take a drink in your name, and you can force the panel to answer any tabletop RPG-related question of your choice right then and there. If we reach $100 or more in Super Chats or Rumble Rants, there will be a $25 Palladium Books or Drive-Thru RPG gift card giveaway during the rando portion of the show towards the end of the live stream. Legion of Myth YouTube members and Rumble subscribers, as well as tonight's Super Chatters and Rumble Ranters, have the opportunity to win, but you must be watching at the time of the giveaway to claim your victory, else it rolls over to next week like the lottery. Legion of Myth moderators will time out or even ban people who attack any panelist or chatter. Attack the argument, not the person, and keep your various social media beefs. Oh God, there are plenty of beefs apparently that I'm becoming aware of right now going on. Yeah, keep them out of here. That's you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Please like this video and subscribe to all of the panelists' channel, well, two of the three that are found in the description. And thank you for your time and support. All right, with that out of the way, let's meet our panelists. First, we have, I think this is your first time on an actual show, on the real portion of the show, we'll call it. We have Kartog. Please introduce yourself and briefly tell us what products or media you create and your tabletop RPG experience.
Well, hello there. My name's Rafael. I'm known as Kartog. And I don't have any channels, not yet, anyway. But I've been playing RPGs basically from 1986 onwards. I started not with, strictly speaking, RPGs, with game books, right, with choose your own adventure games. But then I moved on to second edition AD&D and, kept going from there. So about 35 years of experience there.
Nice. Okay, next to him, we have the one and only Bear, the Gen X GM. Please introduce yourself for the one person who might not know who you are, who's watching later. Briefly tell us what products...
Really, at this point in time, people must know me, but go ahead, sorry.
Well, just, you know the routine. What do you do? Why do you do it? No, go ahead. Tell us who you are.
You know what? I'll be genuine tonight. I won't do my usual I'm a meat popsicle thing. Bear, the Gen X GM. I run a company called Zeg Media, Zenith Comics, Zenith Entertainment Group. Produce comic books, role-playing games, currently in production of Heroic. Have some others coming down the pipe. My beard is being rebellious tonight, including a Star Trek knockoff with my own Orville-style setting, and some other stuff that's coming. I have a great Patreon. Patreon.com/Zenith Comics, I believe, is the exact address for it. For $5 a month, you get now, because I need to slow down because I was just burning through my catalog.
I was getting emails every day.
You get one hero or villain a day plus something else. Right now I'm doing a fiction set in the comic book universe, but as narrative form, which is I'm enjoying it, so I hope you will. I just published my first book on Amazon. And I have a channel at Bear the Gen X GM where I talk smack and hang out with people. There you go. Look at that. Look at that, Max. For you tonight, I gave you the full lambada.
Look, we got a show to get done now. All right. Thank you very much. Malachi, please introduce yourself and briefly tell us what products or media you create in your tabletop RPG experience.
Hey, I'm Malachi. I've been in this hobby since the early 90s with the big black box with the red dragon on it. Been convinced to get a YouTube channel rolling, so gonna really start pushing it a little bit here.
All right, before we get started, I'm gonna knock out the super chats and memberships right away. Walter MC, thank you very much for resubscribing, remembering. Remembering? Yeah,
Remembering. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Mercurius, because I'm not saying this whole long name that you got here. Thank you very much for gifting a membership to, I already lost the name, Damien X247. Damien, if you're watching, well, you remember now. If you're not watching, well,
You remember now.
you remember now. Yeah. And for $2 Australian dollars, he says, so when are you having Condor on, Max? Why do you guys do this to me?
Because they love drama.
No, because now somebody's going to go tattle and go tell him, and he's going to feel attacked. So before the show gets started, let me just put this out there. One, he's welcome on the show. If he wants to come on, respects the nature of the show. I would have zero issues with that. But here's the thing. He is now officially, this will surprise some people, the second person I've ever blocked. That wasn't a porn spammer. Everybody knows the first person, and that person died. Yeah. And I finally blocked him because he essentially challenged people to respond to him. I responded to him. He spurred out and then deleted all the videos and everything, including the specific one he went after me on. So I was like, you know what? If you can't take the heat, if you're going to just keep deleting everything, if you're just going to, you can put this stuff out here, I'm blocking you. If people tell me that he's made some nonsense, I don't care anymore. But with that said, again, he respects the show. He's welcome on. There you go. I'm the second person I've ever blocked. That's all right. Let's get to our real part of the show now. We don't want that kind of craziness. We want real questions and real gamer talk. We got some people on to talk about. So, as mentioned before, we're going to talk tonight about class-based versus skill-based. This does not have to be, I hate class-based, I hate skill-based. This doesn't have to be, I love them either. This is just, let's compare them. And if one of the hosts, co-hosts down here, if one of them loves one over the other, well, I'll probably let you know. But don't think of this as, okay, we're going to prove why one is better than the other. This is a conversation that's going to talk about what the differences are and where each one excels and where each one has some weaknesses. So our first segment today is going to be on defining. We got to get our definitions down a little bit here. So we're going to define class-based and skill-based system. What makes one type? What makes another type? And is there some third party here that we can talk about? I don't know. Sorry, guys, my head is pounding. I will try to think throughout the night. So let's start with Kartog over here. He gets the first question of the night, which is, how do you define class-based and skill-based tabletop RPG systems? And what do you see as the core differences between them in terms of gameplay and player experience?
Well, to start with, we have to consider the fact that if you don't have a class in your system, you may still be a class-based system. So, for example, some systems will use professions or some other term, right? But then we have to think about what the focus of the system is on. If the focus is on the character's profession or class, or if the focus is on the character's skills. And what I mean by that is, how does the character interact with the world? Does the character primarily interact with the world based on who he is or based on what he does? I would say that the first big, departure here from the two types of systems is that if you are a class-based system, your main importance during gameplay is going to be what kind of character you are, what profession, what niche do you fill? Sorry, and if you are a skill-based system, then the niche of the character is much more on what the character is actually rolling for, whatever it is that the character is doing, or what the player is rolling for, whatever it is the character is doing. So that's the primary dissection or diversion between the two types of systems. So interaction with the world. How does this game, how does the system deal with a character interacting with the world? Right. We start from there.
Okay. I could be wrong. I might be hearing things. Sounds like somebody's breathing into a microphone heavily. Might just be me. I don't know. Might be my head pounding and I'm just hearing my blood rushing. I don't know. But with that said, I'm going to ask
Nope, not me.
Like I said, it might be me. I don't know.
Or it could just be Malachi, the mouth breather that he is.
Well, he's got a new microphone now. It's probably picking up everything. He doesn't have a noise gate probably, so we'll blame him. Anyway, so you're talking about how it interacts with the world. So one of the things that, and I don't want to take away anything that may be talked in another segment here, but when you're doing a skill-based game, have you seen people turn those characters basically into classes?
Yes, very
Just
much
through the
so.
selection of skills?
Yes, very much so. One of the points that I was going to raise is exactly that classes usually tend to be something that defines a role, defines a niche, right? For the player to fill. The player is going to use that class as a guideline in order to fill a certain role, fill a certain niche that the not just that the party needs, but that the world needs, right? But then if you have a skill-based system, there is a possibility, there's in fact a very high probability, I would say, that you are going to pick skills that are related and that have something to do with whatever it is that you are, thinking about making your character do. So if you are, say, playing Call of Cthulhu, one of the most notable examples of a skill-based system, and you were playing, say, a historian, you are probably going to pick history. You're probably going to invest some points in archaeology. You're probably going to invest some points in languages, right? So, and let's be honest, if you are in a group and everyone hears, oh, this guy's making a historian, and then you start putting points into accounting, and then firearms, and then, I don't know, swimming, people are going to start going like, are you a historian, or what is it that you're doing exactly? So
look, I got swindled. I need to make sure the books aren't being cooked. And you know what? Everybody's got to go to the gym and work out. I want a better life, so I'm going to the pool.
But yes, there are definitely cases where a skill-based system may, I'm not going to say degenerate, because I don't think it's that kind of thing, but it can turn into a pseudo class system, because you're going to pick skills that are related, at least related to something that is central to the core of the character, right?
Bear, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a buddy of mine who's a PhD in history of medicine. He's also a long-distance bike racer, a martial artist, and a sharpshooter. This is absolutely the nonsense of class-based, but we'll get to me in a minute. I just wanted to jump on that because I fucking hate that idea that we're all something, but we can't be other things.
I mean, Indiana Jones is a professor.
Malachi, Indiana Jones isn't real.
Neither is the game.
But the real
But
people, there's the thing, right? How many points has your friend that is a PhD and also a runner and so on has had to create his character, right?
The only thing I would ever take him on at would be a manual fight, because I'm a better fighter than him. But he's a hell of a shot, and he bikes like 20K a day, and he's written multiple papers. He's taught at universities in 3 different continents. Like, the guy's not a fucking idiot. The point is that if we reduce everyone to a archetype, we do not understand the concept of, ready for it, the Renaissance man. And the Renaissance man is a real thing. And as the timeline gets further along in Western civilization, more and more and more of us are being less specialists and more Renaissance.
But then let's think about this.
Are we arguing? I didn't realize we were debating. Okay.
It's just a rebuttal, just a quick rebuttal. Not even a rebuttal, just a comment. In game terms, if you're going to translate this into game terms, you are going to assign a hell of a lot more points to the Renaissance man than to the specialist. So,
he's also going to be borderline personality disorder. He has a very severe OCD levels that he deals with. He has an off-putting, arrogant personality that alienates most people who know him. So he's got his disadvantage points to get all those other skills. He's good.
So we're going full GURPS now.
No, or champions, or Hero System Basic, or White Wolf, or excessive amounts. And we'll get to that when it's my turn to talk about why skill systems are vastly fucking superior to class systems. But I'm enjoying this.
Me too.
Well, then, again, by the way, I don't know if Bear's been on since I've started this format. I think he has. I'm not sure. But yes.
I was on once, but it was nice. We all liked each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking for. I mean, this kind of back and forth is exactly what we're looking for. So it can be a debate, it can be whatever you guys want, as long as we keep the conversation going forward. But Kartar, I'm just gonna ask one more question. I'm gonna give you a bonus question here, because you're kind of leading in a direction. I'd like to see how you answer this one. Is that how do class-based and skill-based systems influence the way players approach problem solving in a game?
I would say that the first thing that comes to mind is that a class-based system will kind of guide the player into a certain type of solution. So, for example, if you're a fighter in D&D, you're going to be looking to hit things. That's what you do well, and that's what you're probably going to try to do. Now, if you're in a skill-based system, it leaves the door open for you to start thinking about different, or actually kind of requires you to start thinking about different avenues of approach for a certain problem. So a fighter may not have, by design, is not going to have an abundance of skills to deal with different things. In some cases, he will have no skills in certain early games. And if you are playing a thief, for example, you're going to have a bunch of them. And so we can even later on talk about this. The thief may be the first example of a skill-based character playing in a class-based system. Right?
All right. I think Bear might have a different point of view on this, so I'm not exactly sure. But for the audience out there, let's read the question again here. How do you define class-based and skill-based tabletop RPG systems, and what do you see as the core differences between them in terms of gameplay and player experience?
All right, I'm not being facetious when I say this. And remember, I'm even wearing a D&D t-shirt tonight just to prove my point. I like D&D the way I like McDonald's. A couple of times a year, I get that, I got to have some McDonald's right now. I have to play some D&D right now. And then, like, after eating McDonald's, I go, oh, God, why did I do that? But that's okay. Class-based systems, and we might as well just say class and level at this point, guys, because really that's what we're talking about ultimately at the end of the day.
Sure.
But we say class-based because we could refer to Cyberpunk, which is a role-based game, or the 800-pound gorilla in TCG's brain, Palladium, which is a class and skill-based. It's a fucking class-based. It's a skill-based game, let's just be honest. It just has some trappings of a class-based, just like, say, Cyberpunk. There's only truly one real class-based system, and that would be D&D. So I'm just going to target that and its derivative clones. I used to refer to D&D as baby's first role-playing game. I get the functionality of classes because they provide niches. I think modern D&D destroys that by multi-classing everything and therefore removing the niches, so why bother having the goddamn classes in the first place? But that's a whole other argument probably for later in this chat. So for me, a class-based system is D&D. Everybody has a role to fill based on the class they take that determines what skill sets they will have. There may be some overlap, but there won't be a lot. And they are basically designed to do one, two, A, B, and C. A is their primary, B is their secondary, and C is that little extra thing they bring to the table. Skill-based systems, be they random or builder systems like Hero or White Wolf or what have you, are more about making a person who is a fully realized character, who has skills that represent the things they have learned to do in life, and that not everybody is just one thing. Now, because there is a limit of points, you can't be as good a fighter as you would be a wizard because, well, you got to spend points on weapon skills and you got to spend points on, say, magic skills, and that can get really expensive for you really quickly. Some systems introduce the idea of disadvantages and advantages so you can get more points or spend points or what have you, and those work out just lovely as well. The best versions of that are like Star Wars D6, where they have archetypes. You can either build your character from the ground up, or you can just modify an archetype overlay, and off you go to the races. Chaotic Jedi, Laconic Scout, etc., etc. Arrogant Noble, Failed Jedi, one of my favorites. You can do all of those types of things, and then have that move forward. At the end of the day, though, I vastly prefer skill-based systems to class-based systems because I don't put training wheels on my bicycle anymore either.
Do you think, or how do you think, either way, the choice of system type affects the game master's preparation and adventure design, whether from the game master or through modules, whatever?
Again, we have to deal with D&D versus every other game in the world. Every other game in the world just runs a game and does what it does. D&D is so insanely tied and laced together through the class and level system that you have to pay attention to what you're designing. Or in the modern versions, you can very quickly overpower your party and kill them, or you can give them something just complete nonsense that they'll walk through like a cakewalk. So the DM has to spend a little more time considering these things, and also looking at where the gaps in their skill sets exist by, well, they don't have a healer, or they don't have a rogue, or they don't have a this, or they don't have a that. You don't see that so much in other games that use roles, like, say, Cyberpunk, which has that same thing. So for me, I would say class systems require more preparation or consideration from the GM, whereas skill-based systems just require the players to show up and do what they do and figure shit out as they go and hope to God they have the skill that they can use to make a check. Otherwise, oh no, run away, super jump, whatever. You know what I mean? So that's how I see that.
You guys have anything you want to jump in on what he said?
Yeah, fight me. I'm on this hill.
Meow. The cat's gonna fight you.
I was just gonna make
I
a
will fight
comment
your
that
fucking
it's
cat. Is that
Look at this face.
you and me, kitty? Let's beans. Get up. All right, fuck
My-
it.
Go ahead, Carton.
my comment would be that yeah, I agree with what Bear just said, and it's like my definition would be that a class-based system focuses on attributes and role, right? So how good you are at being you, and how does that translate into you applying your role to the niche that you fill in the party. While skill-based systems will focus on the skill roles themselves. So whatever it is that you do is kind of unrelated to what you are. It's what you're doing at the time that actually makes a difference. So I was going to mention 4E, D&D 4E, as a failed attempt at blending this. So, for example, when you look at the skill challenges from D&D 4E, for me, that's a game attempting to force a skill-based idea onto a class-based system, and it fails for multiple reasons. But that's the comment. The class-based system is going to focus on your role, and the skill-based system is going to focus on what you're actually doing at the moment, right?
Okay. Anything else you guys want to?
I can't wait to hear Malachi's pro-class system arguments.
Well,
You should put Kartog in the middle, since he's between the two of us. I'm skills and he's class. So that way we can, bracket the guy who's like supposed to
Fine.
be the common ground.
I can do that. There you go.
There you go. Look at that. Look how cool
Okay.
that is.
Kind of looks like the bookshelves go together too.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's. All right. Malachi, a lot of my follow-up questions I think are going to be answered in later segments, and I don't want to spoil too much now, so I'll come back to them if they don't get asked. But how do you define class-based and skill-based tabletop RPG systems, and what do you see as the core differences between them in terms of gameplay and player experience?
Well, I'm going to say these guys, they pretty much nailed how I see the class and the skill-based systems. So I'm not going to, go over ground we've already tread, but I will say, from my experience, my players have always wanted some kind of skill system. They were never big on the TSR editions of D&D. I had players that always wanted skills. They like 3-5. They like the Palladium system, where they could customize their character. Like, they, like, say with a class-based system, like 3-5. The player, they'll play a wizard, but they want the skills there. They want to be able to customize what their character can do, rather than just being a general kind of catch-all thing that classes tend to have to them.
Oh, that's okay. I thought you were going to keep going.
No.
So I guess, can you discuss how each system type impacts world building and the setting's depth? Yeah, I gave you the hard one.
No. I think with when you're creating a world and you have one for classes, your major NPCs, you're gonna be focusing them on fitting them into classes rather than just generally making like the monsters, like using D&D. Like Bear said, when we think class, D&D is the big one. Whereas a skill base, I think NPC generation, your world building, you can kind of run a little bit more loosey goosey and just like get kind of the numbers where you think they should be. Like Savage Worlds, I think, is a great example. Like, if you want an average person, you give them a D6. You want them above average, you give them a D8. And that's all you got to do, skill-wise.
Do you think that sometimes in games, game masters like to, we'll just say, kind of go outside that box a little bit, where it's let's just, I'm exaggerating for the point of emphasis here. In Dungeons & Dragons, there are only 4 classes: fighter, magic user, thief, cleric. That's it, nothing else.
Okay.
They want something unique and different to spice things up a little bit, so they make their own class, and then you end up with Palladium with like 359 different classes, the homebrewed classes.
Yeah, you can kind of get overboard. That was actually something I was going to bring up later on.
That's fine. We can do that then.
No.
It's just because I told myself I wasn't going to talk so much. Do you guys have any comments that you, based on what Malachi said, that you want to jump in on?
Bullshit. Don't believe anything he says. He's full of lies and he's trying to lead you down the wrong path into a way of darkness.
Bear now owes a quarter to the quarter jar or a swear jar.
Fuck your swear jar. I'll put $1 in. Fuck it too.
He don't worry. He's already front loaded. It's all good.
I'll make it rain on that bitch.
What I was going to say is that the class-based systems tend to be very good at defining roles in society, right? So it's very easy to like classify a town or a village by the number of people that work at a different class in that village, right? So you're going to have a few fighters, maybe 1 mage, and 2 clerics in the local shrine, and a bunch of peasants who are 0-level characters, right? So it's very easy to create and to quantify a bunch of people together in a class-based system. If you are in a skill-based system, like Bear said before, like some people have multiple abilities, and it becomes harder to quantify or detect who is who in that society, right? So that's another point.
Detect who is who in that society?
Yeah, because for example, if you're looking for the doctor, for the local doctor, yeah, maybe
the doctor shop.
Maybe there's like 5 different guys. Let's think about a medieval thing. If you're looking for the doctor, do you go to the alchemist, the herbalist, the
surgeon,
the quack surgeon,
which is actually
or the priest, or the priest, right? So
I go to
which
the
one
guy who's the one that can heal me. And if I'm in a medieval society, I'm sure shit not going to the priest. I'm going to the medicant if there happens to be a medicant, and if not, I'm going to the chirurgeon if I'm in a French-speaking country, or all these other things. Like, am I in a medieval world or a fantasy world?
A fantasy world. Right?
I'm going to the cleric because he's got magic, and I know that.
But I've got a leech.
That's nice.
And some maggots.
Put those in your bum and see how it works out for you. My point is, wow, that was wrong. My point is that we don't, just like we don't need. Anyway, I'm shut up. I'm gonna shut up.
No.
I'm gonna shut up.
This is what the discussion is about.
Because I'm about to crap all over this argument, and I don't want to be that guy. I'm just gonna sit back. And go,
we have 3 more segments. You can do all the crapping you want when we get to there.
I'm gonna go load up on some fiber.
So this question's for all of you. I don't care who jumps in first to take it. What are the learning curves? Hold on, let me adjust this. What are the actual, in your mind, and the perceived learning curves associated with each system type for new players?
I think they're pretty much the same in real terms, but I think the perception, and in some cases may be true, class-based systems may be easier for the newbie to get. Right?
Yeah.
It's probably something on this. I would put it like 60-40. But if I was going to present the first RPG for a group that has never played before, I probably would choose a class-based system because I think it's quicker to grasp the concepts, right? But I think the skill-based system will tend to generate more creativity along, further down the line.
Agreed. I think with class-based games, it's learning to stay within your lane or your class. You're the cleric. Don't go trying to unlock every single chest. It's locked. That's the thieves' job. You let him do that.
But I have a mace that unlocks things.
Truly, verily.
Verily, there you go. All right.
I think it's harder for players who have experience with only one style to switch to the other style initially, but new players, they'll just learn the game they're being taught at the time.
Yeah. One thing
And
I
as
know,
such, earlier versions of D&D will be much easier for them because there's less moving parts, whereas 5th edition, having run some newbie games, oh boy, that can get complex.
yeah, I think players that are come up more on the skill-based side of things, they tend to prefer those games. And like I said earlier, class-based games that have a skill system, a robust skill system.
There's also the point that that things are different in different times, right? So if you're talking about introducing new players in 1982, I would say it's you would have to take that into consideration much more than today, because today, let's be honest, almost everyone that will start playing a TTRPG has put. Oh, and it's Bear, the background sound. Finally, we found it. He muted
I
and the
do
sound's gone. He muted and the sound's gone, so it's him.
Really? Could be me.
Yeah, there you go. It's back.
Well.
But what I was going to say is today you can. It's going to be hard to find someone that hasn't played some sort of online RPG or a computer RPG or some sort of It's much more in the overall consciousness than it was back in the 80s, right? Even though in the 80s it may have been more popular in terms of the player base, but it was less present in the whole of society, mainly because of computer games. Computer games have done that over the decades, right? So I think today, I think the introduction would be more or less the same as Bear said. They're going to learn the system that is being presented to them, so the concepts of RPGs are going to be absorbed either way.
Yeah, and one thing I think that helps with learning a skill system, and Chaosium is probably on top on this, is the starter sets that are out now. The Call of Cthulhu one is excellent. I hear the Rune Quest is excellent. I hear Pendragon is excellent. Great for learning the system. There are solo adventures in there for the GM to go through, and he can learn the system and helps him teach it at the table.
Okay.
Starter sets are a gift to gamers that they don't understand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The thing about starter sets that I've run into, though, is most people that I know are like, I don't want a starter set. I either want the whole thing or I'm just moving on. And I'm like, are you kidding me? like,
Okay, but here's the thing. We have to decide at some point in time whether we're going to value what something is produced by its actual utilitarian nature or by idiots. And I choose not to listen to idiots.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very, very pro quick starts because a lot of them are free, or starter sets that give you the basics that you need to play. And then if you want to add in all the extra stuff later, that sure, more advanced players might want to do, or you just might, actually, I read what the advanced set has got, and I want to add that to my game. Boom, you just go get it, or you implement it yourself. Starter sets are complete games in my experience.
Yeah. I mean, was it the Essential Kit for 5e? It has a complete free rules in print in it, the basic rules. You never need to buy a player's handbook.
Oh, if you don't want like subclasses and all the garbage that ruins the base 5e system, buying the Lost Mines of Phandelver starter set is amazing. Because
even people that hate 5e
amazing.
tell me that is the best introductory adventure for a role-playing game.
But also just the rules that are in that little starter set you could run. It's like 5 levels, I think, in the thing.
Like that.
I can't remember how many levels it is, but you could run that for 2 years if you did it right and didn't just hand out XP like candy,
Yeah.
But full 5e, well, I love it for the core system, which I found in that little book, which they used to give away for free on their website, by the way. You could download the PDFs, and I even printed up a copy at one time, which I got rid of. A friend of mine took it, where I took the I found a thing online where a guy had made covers and a hardcover layout for it to print up on Lulu as D&D basic rules, and the cover he had made was the Elmore with them all standing around the little dragon hanging from the tree, like, woohoo, aren't we great heroes? And it was a great thing. I used to have made like 3-4 copies, gave them to all my players. Like, here you go, your basic rules. Learn them.
That got me kicked off of Lulu.
Oh, trust me, I got kicked off of Lulu for other things.
All right, well, let's get ready to go into the next segment here. I think that was a pretty good discussion to get us started, to get our feet wet. In the next segment, we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of class-based systems. Somebody unwrapping something?
No, it's paper.
Oh, like if you're bringing a present, bring it for everyone. Let's read some super chats before then and see if there are some other things that were brought up. Let's start on the Rumble side because those I can't show on the screen. Grizzly Beardo says for $5. Thank you very much, Grizzly Beardo. I don't have time for drama. Just here to watch the cats. Yes, we are. Malachi's cat. My cats don't come in here anymore because I got rid of the little table that was here. So you go in. I'm sure Bear's cat will attack him at some point tonight. It happens. Kartog, do you have a cat?
No, I have.
You are not welcome on the show anymore, sir.
Would you like one? I can ship beans to you.
I have six feral kittens outside. Well, they're not really kittens anymore. And the mother cat is pregnant again. It's great. Anyway, let's see. For $5 more, Grizzly Beardo says, thank you for the super chats and Rumble rants. I really appreciate it, guys. I do prefer skill-based, but the risk is higher for analysis, paralysis, and character creation. Class-based can lead to that too, but the risk is lower and you often get to playing quicker. And we're probably going to talk about some of that when it comes to both the advantage, disadvantage of class-based and the advantage, disadvantage of skill-based in the segment following. So, hey, real long shot. Good to see you. And Violence Knows Everything made a good point. In a medieval setting, you might go to the barber for your surgery.
Yeah. Because, a good bloodletting.
Al-Qadim, for example. Al-Qadim is a barber surgeon.
El-Qadim, wow.
I love that setting.
That's as authentic Middle Eastern culture as Olive Garden is authentic Italian.
Yeah, but it's not meant to be authentic.
I know it's not, but Jesus Christ, man. I shit on my joke. I don't get to make a lot of Olive Garden jokes, man.
But I like El-Qadim. All right.
I like Olive Garden.
Fair enough. Okay. Wait, we had to Dowan. Thank you again for the gifted membership. I'm not putting that back up again.
My eardrum has been struck by lightning.
Law Dog for $5 says, everyone hit the like button and support the channel. Please do. Also make sure you subscribe to the folks who have channels in the description. And Bear, for future reference, you're totally welcome to not put your YouTube channel in there if you'd rather put your Patreon. Either way. Just a link to something that you do.
Just give me money, people. Just give me all the money.
Just mail him money. Get his address.
I just Ko-Fi if you go to my channel, and you can just send me direct money.
Here we go. And CPK says 10 skill levels of body equilibrium versus cat people with spaceships. I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that means.
I'm confused. Cat people with spaceships. Is that a Starfinder?
I think it's a Traveler reference.
Hey, cat people with spaceships could be my next After the Bomb game. I'm just saying.
It's actually the name of my indie college band's third album.
I was going to do Pigs in Space for an After the Bomb game. But, all right, CPK, hey, appreciate the $10. If you want to clarify that a little bit, go ahead. I saw when it came in, I didn't actually quite get it then either, but it could just be that I'm being ridiculous and retarded. So, Pedar Ruin says, why either or? For example, BECME with its optional skill system that you have your core classes, but select various skills to augment and flavor the class.
Can I answer Pedar on this one?
Yes, absolutely.
So I feel like I can talk directly to him. Why are you being serious here, but you act like an asshole in my channel? Oh, sorry, to answer your point, because it's a god-awful, miserable skill system.
I think people misunderstand it, and that's a topic for another time. I've had that rant a few times.
Actually, that's Rule Cyclopedia, not BECME or Mystara.
Yeah, it isn't Rule Cyclopedia just consolidated BECME?
Different Immortals. They were
really that's the hill you're going to die on for the
it's like that's the part that doesn't matter.
Immortals was in the process of being changed, and they added general skills, which were not in BECME at all from Mystara.
Okay. CPK, I get it now. Okay. If it ever pops up in here. Apparently it did not like your comment because it's not showing up. Anyway, but he says Battlelords of the 23rd century. I got definitely a skill-based game. All right. So, but thank you for the €5. Hopefully the euro's doing well. I'd like to see that translate into a bunch of dollars. I'm just saying. Gifted, Mercurius gifted another membership, so thank you very much. I missed who got that one, and I'm not. Oh, there it is. Zonalar got it. I think he was a member at one point. I think he was gifted something in the past. So congratulations, Zonalar, and thanks again, Mercurius. And I'm going to put this one up here because Bear loves this guy so much. In older games, you don't need a ton of classes. You have the core ones. If you want to be a swashbuckling pirate, pick a thief or a dex-based fighter. Pick some nautical skills and get a parrot. Something about that last part there. Get a parrot. I love that.
Hello, yes, I'd like to return this parrot.
Look, this not a boutique.
Pining for the fjords.
He's joined the Bloody Choir Invisible. Okay, I'm done.
And we got one more super chat that popped in here, and then we'll move on to the next segment. Since its levels are really just to increase skill levels, which would you classify Rollmaster as?
A waste of human time.
I was going to say,
wow.
That's why I have a third category, mixed systems, which Rollmaster fits pretty much in. And it's little cousin Merp, right? Middle Earth Roleplaying.
Or its advanced new version against the Dark Master.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
Or Harp, or.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know that second edition had a starter set, so I learned something new out of the edition of the game that I play the most of.
There's a bunch of them in the 90s.
Yeah, I still remember. Maybe it's because I was never exposed to it, never needed it. I don't know. I just honestly, I didn't know that there was a starter set for second edition.
Third edition had a starter set too.
Yeah, but third edition isn't D&D.
Dice bag, which you cannot buy anywhere anymore. But I have the dice.
Fourth edition had a starter set that they copied the.
Yes, I had it. I think I still have it.
1983 box, the red box.
Red box.
Yeah.
It has the Kobold Hall adventure,
Oh, yeah.
which is actually a fun little adventure.
All right, well, if you want to join, if you think you have some presence and charisma, the ability to educate and entertain, a good AV setup free from apparently all the background noise we're getting today, cats meowing, people breathing heavy, I don't know what's going on, air conditioners, probably fans, airplanes flying outside, the dog barking, the wife screaming at the mother-in-law, all that kind of stuff. Free from noise pollution and interest in discussing tabletop RPGs in this format, join the Some Rando RPG livestream Discord. The link is in the description. To stay tuned for future topics, help us get to know you, and maybe we'll get you on the show to talk about your experiences. Of course, if you enjoy this discussion, please like this video, subscribe to all the panelist channels, which you also can find in the description. And now we're going to move on to segment 2, because everybody reverse spots here. We will start with Bear. All right, so this segment 2 is the advantages and disadvantages of class-based systems.
Hey,
So,
you don't want to think? You don't want to make a decision? Play a class-based system where you can just pick an archetype and roll your dice and have fun. I'm just going to be a fighter. Here we go. Whee! Right? Now, there are some that are going to require...
I haven't even asked the question yet.
I'm already ahead of you. I know what the question is. What are the advantages
Yeah, but the
and
people out there
disadvantages
don't know
of
the
a
question.
class-based guild system? Okay, go ahead, Max.
Well, he already answered the second part of it, but what do you perceive as the key advantages and disadvantages of class-based tabletop RPG systems, and how have these factors influenced your gaming experience?
Was that... All right. The advantages are simplicity, niche protection, and what you get is on the box with minor levels of customization depending on which version of D&D you're playing. The disadvantages are all the exact same things I just said. Stifled creativity, narrow focus. As you make decisions, you lock yourself into choices and paths that become unbreakable and can lead to, in the mechanics, very, 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 very inferior characters. Yeah, that's about it. How does it influence my decision-making stuff? I try not to use class level systems because they're lame.
So what role does tradition or nostalgia play in your preference for or against class-based? What's that?
I use tradition and nostalgia for settings, not for systems.
Okay.
I think nostalgia for systems is a nice thing to have. It's really cool, but eventually you figure out why exactly everybody moved on at some point or another as you're playing the game, and you get to that, oh yeah, here we are, level 6. This is why I hate this game, and stop playing it. Right, okay, moving on. Right, like that's how it works. So It's nice to have nostalgia. Wouldn't it be, wouldn't it be swell if we could all just, make it all perfect, but we can't. So if you love what you love, like Maze's Musing says, if you find a game you love, run it forever and don't worry about it.
Yep.
You'll be happy. Clap your hands.
So I know you're a dirty story gamer.
So am.
I guess technically so am I.
Guilty.
Do you think that class-based systems have any influence on, basically, do they limit or enhance role-playing opportunities? If so,
Limit.
why or why not?
Limit. Because of all the reasons I listed before, niche protection, choice trees, things like that. They just cause you to then go, well, I have to multi-class now because my character can't do the thing he's learned how to do because that's not part of my class, but in game we learned that, so especially with godforsaken spellcasters.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. Hey, how does magic work in your world? Well, you memorize a spell and then you cast it, and then it goes off your list. Great. What is that? Divine magic? Is that arcane magic? Well, it's divine. So explain arcane magic to me. Well, I have a spell and I cast it and it's gone. Sounds like the same bullshit to me. Why do my priests act like wizards with a fucking bodyguard? You know what I mean? It doesn't add up. It's stupid. I want my priest to be magical and be doing miracles and invoking their gods and summoning them through with different mechanics than the exact same fucking spellcasting mechanics as every other class that casts spells. It breaks the setting. It breaks the verisimilitude unless you're playing a D&D world where that is how it is done. So when you start creating your own world, you very quickly start going, well, I wanted to have this monotheistic religion where miracles were considered possible, but they weren't vulgar and overt. But I can't do that because clerics can make good berries and heal people on the battlefield and bless, and all this garbage. So I'm not interested in that. It holds no fascination for me. I like systems where you have differences, where you have the magic systems are not inherent to a class. They are the magic systems in and of themselves that a character can learn and use. BRP does this chef's kiss perfectly. You look at all the different magic systems and all the different versions of BRP, Magic World, Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, etc., and you are going to see there are tons of different magic systems that, yes, they all use power, and yes, they all need a spellcasting role, but the fundamental mechanics are different and how you come at them are different, and that's what makes it interesting for me.
Okay, you guys have anything you want to add to that?
I was going to say the magic is a breaking point, a real breaking point, because in class-based systems, I rather dislike the system of multi-classing that they implemented in later versions of D&D, exactly because it creates this dissonance in the character. I much prefer the earlier versions where you multi-classed from level 1 and you were already a fighter mage or a fighter cleric or even a cleric fighter mage. In skill-based systems, it can be like Bear said, just a matter of learning how the spell system works, and then in Call of Cthulhu, for example, you learn the spell and then you do a spellcasting roll, spend your sanity or lose your sanity because you're communing with demons, and that's it. You're using the magic system, so you can learn that as a policeman, right? You can do that. So yeah, magic is a really important breaking point in between class and skill-based systems. But I was going to reinforce what Bear said. Almost all of the benefits of a class system are also its weaknesses. So I would say that, for example, ease of role definition is a very strong point, but then you run the risk of pigeonholing, right?
Yeah.
And like Bear said, you're going to limit what the character can or should do, right? Because the rest of the party wants to have their own influence in the thing. And if the cleric, which is one of the problems of the second edition cleric, the cleric could cast his healing spells, but he could also fight like hell. And if he had the correct spells, he could do some of the mage stuff as well. So niche protection is a big thing in class-based systems, right?
Okay. Malachi, do you want to?
No. I mean, the only thing Well, the one thing I will say is that I know later on, Wizards really tried to really broaden through the Saga Edition, broaden how classes worked, and I I shouldn't be saying that. I should be saying D20 Modern, where you no, forget it. I don't know where I'm going with it. I thought and I think it escaped on me.
All right, well, maybe you'll think about it in a moment. Yeah, I asked to bear that. So, okay, let's move over to Kartog. What do you perceive as the key advantages and disadvantages of class-based tabletop RPG systems, and how have these factors influenced your gaming experience?
Well, I'm going to agree with a lot of what Bear said. Like I said, ease of role definition, the strength of character purpose, right? What are you going to do during the game? The class gives you a preloaded, front-loaded bunch of things that your character can do and will do during the adventure. So this will give the player kind of a confidence in what the character is able to do. So the class-based system will especially for newbies, will allow them to like reach a certain level of proficiency with their character faster than in a skill-based system, right? That's a big advantage. The accessibility to beginners, like I said in the previous segment, it tends to be a little easier to comprehend the especially the game world through classes than it is through skills, and I think that's a strength. And I also think that this simplicity, this accessibility, may hinder some of the more advanced players that have already been there, done that. They may find it a little bit limiting and restricting. So some players will get jaded with a class-based system and eventually abandon it and go towards skill systems. But other players find it fine. Like they keep going with class-based systems forever. It's I think personal preference will tend to have a very large importance in what you decide in terms of what your favorite forms of role playing will be. So there will be some sort of like personal input that's going to eventually lead to you preferring one or the other. But as is the case with me, you can also like both of them, right? It's not an impediment. Liking the class-based system does not make me automatically hate a skill-based system or vice versa.
Okay. Whoosh! Oh my God, I feel like I'm at work. Some people need to mute microphones. And he was the one I was going to ask a question. Any follow up that you want to address, Bear? Since Malachi's muted because apparently his cat's playing with paper bags.
There we go.
No.
Recyclable bag. Reusable.
No, I'm good. I just like hearing "I agree with Bear" over and over and over again. Just really.
No, but I was going to say if we have a point of disagreement is that don't you think that class-based systems can be just as productive in terms of role playing if the players are actually what?
I never said they couldn't be.
No, but specifically in the sense of like if you have an experienced group of players, people that have experienced both class and skill-based systems, don't you think that the choice kind of like it's not necessarily that skill-based systems will generate more role-playing than class-based systems?
Things I've never said. So you're using my least favorite point in an argument, which is saying, don't you think? Which immediately makes me have to say, yes, I think, or no, I don't think. So in these cases, I'm going to say, no, I don't think. I don't think that way at all. I think players will determine role-playing. I don't think systems or classes will determine role-playing. What I said and what I stand by is that certain types of systems encourage certain types of role-playing over the others. As Crafty Matt keeps saying and is now super chatted to get the attention across, class and level systems focus on group unity and group dynamic, where skill systems will focus more on individual characters' abilities and what they bring to the table. Case in point, I'm running a D&D game. What's everybody playing is the first thing you're going to hear out of the players. Well, I don't know. I'll just wait till everybody's done and I'll pick whatever needs to be filled in at the end. Wow, what an exciting, gripping character you've created for this game because there was no clerik. You said, oh, I'll be the cleric then. Versus, hey, all right, we're doing a game about you guys being a band of supernatural crime fighters. What are your characters? Well, I think I want to be the drummer. And I think, and then they start coming up with characters that fit the role that they want to play, as opposed to I'm the fighter, I'm the cleric, I'm the spellcaster, I'm the this, I'm the that. So
Now,
I
I'm
think
glad
they're
I got something out of you that I
different types of
really
role
wanted to
playing.
get, which is the whole player set role playing instead of system, because I remember very clearly, because I went through this during the time that it happened, that when 4E came out specifically for D&D, uh, there was a huge split in the community, in the sense that a lot of people said that 4E discouraged role playing
Did not.
because it transmitted, for example, the one thing I mentioned before of skill challenges, that it
Yeah.
encouraged DMs to basically transform role playing opportunities in a social setting into skill rolls, and then the players would simply just roll 5 or 6 skills one after the other, and that would be that would solve the social encounter, which is something I kind of like almost dry heave a little bit when I say those words. But it was a big discussion in the community. Does 4E limit role playing? Does 4E discourage role playing even
No.
because of its more focus on combat, on focus on systems, and specifically the idea of powers instead of like character abilities? Right?
No, because I've run 4E and we role played just as
Yeah.
much as we did in 3E, 5E, 1E, 2E, Bob's Your Uncle E, and oh yeah, that guy over there has a D&D clone we haven't played yet, E. Just your group, your players will determine things.
Yep. I mean, the basic expert was saying today he ran 4E. That's where he started in the hobby, and he ran it as a dungeoneering and exploration game, just like the older editions. And
Malachi trumped you.
And this is for Kartog. How do you class-based systems handle character uniqueness then, and character personalization?
Well, here's where the DM's gonna have to talk to his players and say, well, Joe's a fighter, Bob's a fighter. The difference between them is going to be in how Joe and Bob play their fighters, right? So even though they're both the same class, they will be, played differently by 2 different people. And if you want to make your fighter unique, you have to think for yourself in terms of like, what does my fighter, what does make him unique? What does make him different, right? Maybe you don't want to be different. Maybe you just want to be Bob the fighter. Maybe you want to be Bob the fighter that uses a trident and a net. Maybe you want to be Bob the fighter that likes to talk to people instead of hitting them. Well, that's up to you, because the class only gives you the basic definition of what your role will be. But the details are up to you. The details are up to the player to decide what to do with the class, right? So wizards may be a little better off in this sense because of the different schools of magic and the possibility of you being, for example, a specialist, right? Which already will, make some difference in your character, make you more, unique. But it's present with all classes. You're going to have to make decisions. I do think that, for example, specialty priests, specialist wizards, they do allow, like, it's easier for players to understand how to make their characters unique when you use those systems, right? If you ignore them, then it's going to be really role playing that's going to define it, right?
Anything else, guys? All right, then let's go ahead.
I thought I was the guy who was going to be like, I see the merits of both, but it turns out that was Kartog, and I'm just like, I have to be pro skill system and anti-class system for the purpose of this arguments. Hence why I'm making certain arguments a little more dramatic and example than they are. So, please understand that I'm filling a role tonight in the debate. And anyone
He's
who's been on a
kayfabing
debate
for some reason.
anybody who's been on a debate team knows sometimes you're going to have to take the argument that you didn't agree with and make it agreeable, because that's how debate.
Well, they teach that. They make you do that.
Yes. So that's what I'm doing tonight. So save your hate.
No, let it flow. Let your hate flow through you. All right, Malachi. By the way, I am reading the chat. Chat is hopping tonight. Really appreciate everybody that's here. If you're new, you're awesome. Please like, subscribe, share. Come back for more of these panel shows. But I am watching it. So honestly, thank you guys, because that stuff is moving pretty quickly tonight, and I appreciate that. All right, so Malachi, what do you perceive as the key advantages and disadvantages of class-based tabletop RPG systems, and how these factors influence your gaming experiences?
Well, I'll say these guys hit a bunch of my pros already. One that I'm going to bring up is I think it's quick to class-based systems, especially older D&D, can be quick to get a character, get to the table, and get playing. Your character dies, quick to roll up a new one and keep in the game and keep things moving. Like Crafty said earlier, one of the disadvantages is that you have a cohesive party. You want to fill all those roles. The party might not have all those roles filled when you go out adventuring. And depending on the GM's level of world building, you're going to be possibly wanting to create classes. And if your system of choice does not have a way to easily make classes that are balanced with each other, however the system does it, it could be very difficult to get things fine-tuned well enough without having to constantly make changes after every session.
Okay. Oops, I had it highlighted. So, where is it? I had one. Oh man, I forgot which one I was going to ask you. Well, you're going to get the hard one. No, I shouldn't say hard. I wanted that for everybody. I had one of these was directly for you, and then I scrolled, and now it's not there. Hold on.
Bro screamer.
I know, right? That's what happens when I prepare. I sometimes prepare too much. See, over prepping isn't always good, folks. And I'm hearing lots of clicking. In what way? We'll do this. In what ways do class-based systems simplify or complicate character creation?
Well, simplify, I'm going to say basic D&D. That's going to be your simplest character creation. You roll 3d6, typically right straight down the line. You take a look, you go, I'm best at this class. You take that class, rolls your starting gold, and if you're playing OSC and you have the right carcass crawler, you can just roll on some tables to generate what equipment you have, and you're ready to go. OSC with that one carcass crawler, I can create a character in a basic character in about 5-10 minutes, and I'm ready to roll. But if you want to really dive in, then you want to, I mentioned this earlier today, I think a better 3rd edition fantasy game is actually D20 Modern and the fantasy book that Wizards released for it. The amount of customization you can do by multi-classing in that is insane, the way they designed that system. I think there's a lot more you can do compared to 3.5. And that is one where you can really get into the weeds and take a long time and with your character creation.
And then how do you think class-based systems impact the balance of power among characters?
I think that balance-wise, you have to look at the long term of the campaign. You can't just look level 1, 2, 3. You have to, beginning, traditionally, your fighter will be your best character class. The wizard is something you are shooting for the long term, the end game with your character. So as the play progresses, you will see the wizard actually become more powerful and possibly overcome the fighter. But it's because early on, you are the weaker class. So you have to build up to that. And sometimes you will have that. The balance is not going to be a snapshot of your campaign. It's going to be the whole campaign.
Okay. You guys want to say anything to that, or?
I was going to say that this is true, but it really depends on the system. So, for example, if you go from basic D&D to Star Wars D20, you're going to see that the classes tend to be a lot more balanced than Star Wars D20 because at the time Wizards was focusing on this. They was starting with 3rd edition. They decided to focus more on character balance. I mean, they screwed it up dramatically, but that was their focus. That was what they wanted to do. And I think this has continued over time. Specifically, 4th edition is probably the epitome of class balance because pretty much everything was the same, right? So, but mechanically, there are differences. Yeah, there are differences, but depending on the system, you're going to get more or less balanced classes. The early D&D, the problem is Gary hated wizards. And so he wanted to make wizards super fucking weak. Sorry
What-
about the cursing. Go ahead.
Ah.
Monica.
But he's played Wizards.
Sure.
I
But if you-
think the balance of older editions is not in what the character can do. It's how long and how long it takes to progress to every level. That's where the balancing comes in.
Yeah, but that's kind of a cop-out, right? Because at level 1, the fighter is undisputably more powerful than the wizard. There's no denying that. And that was because Gary initially, in fact, didn't even want Magic Missile to hit automatically. He wanted people to roll to hit Magic Missile. So he really wanted wizards to be weak. And then eventually, because the game progressed that way, wizards became more and more powerful, and it created the whole, the fighter that was like started strong, but then it tended to peter out over the later levels, and wizards that started weak and then became powerhouses by 9th and then 11th level. They were just wrecking the entire thing. Class-based systems can make balance very difficult if the designers don't pay attention to little details, and if they go overboard with some certain things. So, for example, the cleric in 2nd edition, if you allowed the player to have everything, clerics were dramatically more powerful than all other classes.
Yeah.
So it could create problems if balance was something that the DM was worried about and that the group was worried about. So there's that.
Yeah. The key in 2E, from my understanding, was creating your pantheon and having those spheres. That's where
if you followed the priest handbook, it worked out fairly well. If you followed Forgotten Realms gods, you were OP.
Forgotten Realms.
Right. Basically, you follow Forgotten Realms god, every sphere's major. Just call it a day. Let's move on. All right. So how do class-based, and this is for all of you, how do class-based systems affect group dynamics and teamworks differently than skill-based games?
Well, I mean, come on. I want to go and try that. Yeah, but I'm the thief, dude. It's my job.
Yeah.
It's the thing. Yeah, but I got a skill in it, so I want to try because I'm playing 3rd edition and I can do anything. It's aggravating. It's annoying. The niche protection can become a crutch. And then you get into that problem of, wow, the barbarian made an intelligence roll and beat the wizard. You know what I mean? Like, it's nonsense. It doesn't work. It's broken. They're all broken.
But that can also happen in skill-based systems, right?
Absolutely, but there is no niche protection in a skill-based system, Kurt.
To a certain extent, depending on how much the system focuses on professions, for example, or occupations, right?
I've never seen a solo try to net run.
That's true. But then, for
I've never
example,
seen a net runner charge into a
Cypher
room.
system, Cypher system is
Cypher's
very,
garbage.
very complex. Yeah, it is garbage. But I have to give an example, right, of something going wrong. Cypher system is an example of things going wrong. So it was very common at the start that a mage could easily bend some bars on a cell that the barbarian tried and couldn't. Right? It was a little strange, and in fact, if you used Cypher without any of its expansions, it was still the case that this could happen with advanced characters. It's just that the barbarian could try more often. That's it. That's almost
my exposure to Cypher is about this deep, and I was like, nope, and I got that real quick.
It's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad example of almost everything you can think of.
Is that the Monty from Monty Cook?
Yeah, the Numenera. It started with Numenera, then it started expanding into other things, right?
I have
the
this.
strain. So.
Yeah, that's the concept is neat, but I couldn't really get into.
There are some incredible things done with settings, right? The Strange is an incredible setting, but in terms of rules, it's a mess. It's a big mess.
Do you think it's an inherent issue with the system, or with the experience or quality of role players, that class-based games are often accused of having too much predictability and certain expectations out of players? And before you answer that, let me read the super chat. You can think about it for a moment. Since the super chat's $20, we will read it now. Thank you, Law Dog, very much for the $20 super chat. He says it's harder to fine-tune your character in a class-based system, which is why so many people gravitate to wizards. They're more versatile. Skill-based systems don't suffer as much from this problem. Do you guys have any thoughts on that before we go back to the question?
For $20, I agree.
Yeah.
It is harder to fine tune the system,
Yeah.
the character, because the class, by definition, is going to restrict what it is that you can pick, right? So in pure game terms, the skill based system is going to give you more options to pick every time you level up, or even if you level up, right? There are some systems where you level up in order to be able to level up your skills. So it's weird to MERP, for example, has that system where you level up just so you can raise your skill levels, which is a little bit strange, but it works. But yeah, class-based systems are going to restrict your how can I say, fine-tuning of the character, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now back to the question that I had, which is kind of similar to that. It's like, do you think that do you think it's an issue with role playing or systems more so? If you had to lean in a direction that causes a perception of predictability and or certain expectations out of characters because of it being class based.
I think what causes the perception is definitely the system, right? I don't know if it's the reality though. I think the reality tends much more towards the players than the system itself. Go ahead, Malcolm.
I was going to say, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you walk in with some expectations, but at the same time, nobody's trying to break expectations at all. I don't think it's.
I'm not sure. I think it depends on the group then, because there are a lot of groups where you will see characters or players, working very hard to break expectations, right? Hey, I'm gonna make a paladin, but my paladin uses a bow and arrow, and he likes to hang in the back and use leather armor. It's like, okay, ease up on the specialness of your character there.
Yeah.
Well, that comes to playing against type. I despise playing against type. I think that you can be diverse, and I think you can come with interesting ways to play the character without just playing against type.
Yeah.
But that comes back to, is that inherent because it's a class-based system, or is that because bad role players, or both?
Now, here's a thought there. Using a paladin example. Well, paladin's traditionally sword and shield, right? We can agree on that. But would you say would he be more of a zealot or more of a humble in his approach to his religion?
Don't get me started on this topic.
It's directly on the player, right? The player is going to make that decision.
Yeah.
Right?
I really don't think that inherently in class. I think looking at it, I think people would probably think that he'd be more of a zealotry type, and I think they would be less likely to do the humble. But I think,
don't know. I think it's going to be split, but the thing is, players are going to have to make that decision, right? They're going to have to look at their idea of what the character is, because frankly, that's where it's going to come from, right? Their idea of what the character is. And then they're going to make it goes back to what we were talking about before, where the player makes the role-playing decisions. He's the one that's going to define how his character is different from the others, right? And that's more on the player than the system.
Yep.
I think good players will always make something into something good. And I think boring ass players will always fall into the tropes. And that's why we see horny bards and stick up their ass paladins and that type of stuff. Good players will do good things. Bad players will do bad things, and boring players will do boring things. Class systems encourage all three of those.
Yeah.
And it's good that both Crafty and Malachi are wrong.
I'm gonna get a drink.
We don't use history to talk Dungeons and Dragons, but that's not the topic for tonight. So, all right, let's. Actually, I think we're done with that one. So a couple more, but you guys actually answered most of the follow-up questions. Well, and also some of them again kind of go into the follow-up questions here that we have, where obviously advantages and disadvantages skill-based is going to be next. So I don't want to dive into that segment until we're really there. So let's knock out some of these super chats. By the way, again, thank you for chat. You guys are keeping this moving tonight. Looks like there's a lot of conversation on this. I don't know why that switched from live to top, but did. Oh, because I had to refresh. But thank you very much. I'm happy that everybody's here. If you are new here, please be sure to like, subscribe, share. Really appreciate anybody who has not watched one of these panels before that is here. maybe learning something, maybe having your own opinions, go ahead and throw those into chat as well. And let's read what we've got here. Already read that. Always have a hard time finding where I stopped. I think did I ask the Rollmaster one from Doc Flamingo? This one? Since its
Yes.
levels are okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then Crafty said class-based systems are built around. I think we read. No, that's right.
Yeah.
I
Bear
started
brought that
that
up.
one, but then he super chatted it. So let's just go to the super chat one. Okay, Crafty Matt for $10. You will notice that class-based games are built around the idea of a cohesive party and knowing your role. I think he meant ROLE role in the group. Skill-based games are more individualistic. You guys have thoughts about that?
No, I mean Bear handled that great.
And it definitely is that, right? People will be able to express their desires for a character more easily in a skill-based system.
No,
pretty
they
much
can express their minutia of the character much better.
Yeah,
They can get
details,
into
right?
the nooks and crannies, right? So, like, not to be an ass about it. So, English muffin versus bagel, right? English muffin, you got all those little holes from the baking powder in there that makes it all so stuff goes in, right? The nooks and crannies, the argument. Where the bagel is usually a flat surface when it's cut in half, and you just spread garbage on it, right? Or stuff, not garbage. Class, right? You just spread it on and away you go. But with skill-based, there's all these little places where you're going to find individuality and ideas for the character and things that are going to resonate well. And you can then make a more diverse character that has more, I feel, nuance.
It can also be described as granularity, right? You're defining specifically more what the character can do in detail, right? That's one way to put it.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next one. Doc Flamingo, thanks for the $5, Doc Flamingo. Do I have you on an upcoming show here? Can't remember. Oh, possibly next week. There we go. So hopefully you're going to come for that one. Really enjoyed you on the show a couple weeks ago. He says systems don't discourage RP. I think it's more fair to say that high crunch systems facilitate role playing less by virtue of attention drain.
I'm not sure if it's a tension drain or if it's more that the high crunch. Let's be honest here. High crunch usually means more combat, right? It's almost always that, right? So systems that are high crunch tend to be focused on combat, and therefore they're going to make combat like splashy, like look at what I can do, right? So again, we have to use D&D 4e as the major example, right? Oh, my character has a daily power, a couple of encounter powers, a bunch of at will powers, and all of those things make my character different, right? Except that then everyone has those powers, and they basically do the same thing. I always thought it funny that the first level powers are all like, oh, the ranger casts the flaming arrow of whatever, and it does 1d6 damage. The wizard casts the glowing orb of lightning, and it does 1d6 damage. The warrior swings the great sword of madness and does 1d6 damage, and that's it. Right? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And the warrior swings the longsword that does 1d8 damage.
Sure.
The ranger shoots the bow that does 1d6 damage. The wizard casts the eldritch blast that does 1d8 damage, etc., etc., etc. 5e is the biggest.
Oh yeah, 5e,
one,
yeah.
Because by level 10, everybody's doing the same shit all the time with different names.
But that's one thing that I always tell people when people ask, why do you also not like 5e? And I say, because there's a lot of 4e in 5e. One of the things that's hanging on is one of those. The powers have been disguised a little bit, but they're still pretty much there. And
why
things
do you
like
hate 4e so much.
What?
Why do you hate 4e so much?
Maybe because
show me on the doll where 4e touched you, sir.
It touched me in very, very bad places.
I think you had a bad campaign because it's not a bad system at the end of the day.
I took a dislike to it right from the get-go, and I was maybe like already like fed up with 3e by that time, and 4e was like, okay, if D&D is gonna be this, I'm just gonna go do something else, right?
See, I would rather play 4e than 3e.
I'd rather play 3E than 4E.
I'd rather play Dungeons and Dragons than anything WotC.
I'd rather house rule 3E so it's closer to Star Wars Saga Edition.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to play D&D. Let's just play this and get it over with.
There's a bunch of new stuff that can be played that is like as good or probably better than D&D. But this is a discussion for a different time, right?
I'm gonna read another chat first because otherwise I will forget, and I don't want to forget. Over on the Rumble side, just I can't put them up on the screen. So Grizzly Beardo for $5 says class base and point buy aren't exactly synonymous, but often go together. My character created played ratio for these type. What the heck? My character created played ratio for these types of games is about 20-1. Oh, okay. I see what he's saying. His characters created versus played is 20-1, and he loves it. It's a game within a game. Okay, I get it now.
What does he mean? That the point buy system is a game within a game, and that he prefers that?
Well, apparently he loves making characters.
Yeah, but point buy characters or rolled characters? Because I think that's the
point buy and exact synonyms. Again, my character for he just said these types, so it looks like class base and point buy. So it looks like he's made many more class base than point buy.
Because my counter to that would be the point buy tends, of course, not always the case, but it tends to generate samey characters, right? Because there is an optimal way to point buy. If you're going to play a character like in D&D 3rd edition and you're going to point buy, there is definitely a better way to point buy than all the others. And if you don't do that, you are intentionally making your character less optimal, right? Which is something that people during 3E were very much against, right? They didn't want you playing the fighter with 12 strength, right? If you could put a 16 on strength, you probably should, because the rest of the party expects your fighter to be strong. So my experience is that point buy systems tend to encourage people to point buy pretty much the same way as everyone else, and that kind of like diminishes character variability.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing. I ran into that quite a bit with 3E as well. It's one of the reasons why I despise 3E is because I like to make characters, not character sheets. And that's actually one of the things I was going to say. I think it was to Doc Flamingo's comment. And Grizzly Beardo expanded on that. He said, I love skill-based, which are often point buy. What I've noticed about crunchy games or games that are even a lot of skill-based games, going with Battlers of the 23rd Century, I saw this a lot, is people tend to play character sheets more than characters. Now, the flip side to that in the class side is people tend to play a trope and not a character. So they both have their inherent strengths and weaknesses. But let's move on to the next one. Again, thanks again, Lada. We already read this one, but thanks again for the $20. Appreciate that. Balance, schmalance. That's right. I love it. Balance is just, it's dumb. It's a dumb concept. Good game master doesn't even care about balance. You know how to make the weak character shine, and you know how to make the strong character a side character temporarily. So,
and players will do that too, right?
Good players will, yeah.
DM. Yeah, it's not just DM. Players will do that too.
Law Dog for $5 says classes are more railroady and take away my agency. I disagree, but
yeah.
I'll have my comments on that later.
Agency. So we were talking about characters being samey. I love this game. On paper, I think this is one of the greatest games ever written. You can do so much, make such interesting characters. Yep. And by your 10th session, everybody's doing the exact same stuff, just with different names. Yeah. Exactly what we were talking about earlier. So there's that. Number 2. If you want to have D&D fun with no bullshit, you don't have OSE, get BX. Okay? Get BX. BX is probably the greatest edition of D&D, just for the ability to house rule, the modularity of it, the ability to change things up. You want skills, add skills. You don't want skills, and nothing breaks anything. Because it's not some intricately woven system that, oh, no, don't tug on that. You never know what it's connected to, right? Like, that's the beauty of this system. But If you want to play some crazy, fun, gonzo, over-the-top class D&D, pick up the 2 Black Pudding Heavy Helpings. There's an entire BX system in here with amazing, cool classes, weird classes, fun classes. You could do Ralph Bashki's Wizards with this. I'm telling you, you could do anything you want with this in a D&D framework, so long as Gonzo is your operating choice, because you'll really have fun.
I'll just do it where it belongs, sir.
Yeah, I don't have fucking $400 to buy that, sir.
Oh, is that what it costs?
No, it's like every time it comes up for sale, it's like $200-$300 American. And I would love to own it. I wish I could own it. And now you have my envy. I have all the PDFs, but I want the books. I want the Montagar book and all that fun stuff. But they're so expensive.
This is literally the only book I had because I looked for Scorch and I was like, nope, not paying that price. And that was a couple of years ago.
It's still up there. And
I was going to say,
rarely come up.
I was gonna say I never heard of that game, Bear. Never seen it.
Black
before.
Pudding. So Black Pudding is a zine.
Yeah,
you can get it on. You can get it on drive-through.
Yeah,
and the guy who made it is a really cool guy. I actually became friends with him on Facebook. He's a cool dude. He put together 2 collections. One a couple of years ago called Black Pudding: A Heavy Helping, and then last year he released Heavy Helping 2. And in them, if you pay attention and read everything, and everything's handwritten, right? It's all hand drawn and hand lettered. It's amazing.
It is.
There's a fucking BX Labyrinth Lord type system in there with all these really cool character classes and neat things. Like when you play a Hobbit, you got to roll on the what's in its pockets chart and stuff like that. It's just cool little shit.
I remember when that was called Kender.
Okay, eat my dick. It's a reference
there are a lot of neat random charts in the first one. Like the dwarf one has a random table for missing teeth. The hell? Where you get come up with this stuff? It's awesome.
And he has a great leveling up system where instead of you automatically add an attribute point every level you go up, you pick one of your attributes and roll against it to see if you increase it or not.
Yeah,
it's really cool shit. It really works really, really well, and I highly recommend it to everyone. It's not a game; it's a zine. Yeah, but you can pick up the zines. I have them all as PDFs because they're awesome. But you can pick up the print copies of Heavy Helping Volume 1 and 2, and thank me later. But you better have a gonzo sensibility, because when you get to the Barbara Bunny, you're going to be like, "What the fuck is this?"
I don't want to derail this into a whole different topic here. We need to move on here. But there you go. Check out that pitch from Bear, and maybe we can talk more about that in the segment 5 because it sounds interesting. Law Dog for $5 says, as in most things I strive for an Aristotelian. I don't know why I can't say that.
Aristotelian.
Yeah, Aristotelian. I will get the word out. Mean approach and prefer a blending of the two, like in Palladium.
I like that because Aristotle was a mean prick. But anyway, Aristotle.
I think he means averages and medians and
Aristotelian.
Shut up! You don't even speak English as a first language.
He can say it.
Wait a minute, you're
Canadian. I can also say verisimilitude.
I can say verisimilitude.
You said it wrong.
No, I said it the way we say it.
Wrong.
Well, so when Bear said bagel earlier, I was like, I can say bagel too in Minnesotan.
I can say it in French.
You could have come back with wrongly, and I would have been
wrongly. You say wrongly
because that's the correct way to say what I said. I said
Portuguese, much like Spanish. Pronounce every letter, please.
No, but because I said you said it wrong, the correct form of saying that would be you said it wrongly.
No, you said it incorrectly.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. We have a show to run here, folks. All right, let me get my.
I'm going to Brazil just to cage fight him.
Oh, wow. All right, so the charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national nonpartisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to the video's description for the link to where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. Also, you can join the team if you want to support the Wounded Warrior Project just through your own auspices. You can set up your own charity drive and just join our team, Nerds and Warriors, at the same time. So you get credit for it, but it helps the team out as a whole. So if you want to go that way. And of course, if you enjoy this discussion, please like this video and subscribe to all of the panelist channels, which you can find in the description. Okay, 2 out of 3, but you get it. Those who are in the description are there. And once again, chat's going crazy. Love it. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Our numbers are bouncing a lot tonight. I don't know if YouTube's being weird or if they're just people are coming and going as they please. But thank you very much for everybody being here. And we are now going to go into segment 3. Uh-oh. Can't do it without glowy. There we go. Got to have the glowy effect. So we are going to start with Malachi this time. You're on the spot, Malachi.
Well, what else is new?
So, what do you see as the now? So we've moved over. So last one was about class-based. Now we're going to talk about skill-based. So, what do you see as the primary advantages and disadvantages of skill-based tabletop RPG systems, and how they shaped your approach to gaming?
I think the biggest one with skills is you get more customization when you're creating your character, and as you progress your character. Whereas a class-based system, let's say you want to play what's been what I've heard called a Gish, a fighter wizard. You got multi-class. Unless you're playing 5e, then you can do it with the subclasses. But with the skill base, you can easily do that right from the start. No worry about classes. Just spend your points, your dice, if it's like a D6 system, whatever. But that I think is really the biggest and the one that I notice a lot with the benefit of a skill-based system. Now, a couple of the negatives I see, Bear brought up the one with Savage Worlds. It's same. The characters can get samey after a few sessions. And one thing I noticed I was in a long-running 7C campaign, and it got to the point where we didn't know what to spend our XP on. We had our skills where we wanted them. We were very competent characters. We just at one point, I think I let XP just sit there. I wasn't spending it because I had nothing to spend it on. Unless I started going into other people's wheelhouses.
So do you think that skill-based games, because you make an interesting point there, I mean, to me, and I'm saying this from my perspective, playing a skill-based game kind of implies that, sure, you might be the better thief, but I'm going to pick up some thieving stuff in case you fail, die, get knocked out, or sidetracked, or whatever. Bear might be the better fighter, but I'm going to pick up some fighting skills because, we're all going to want to support each other, whatever.
Yeah.
So do you think that playing a skill-based game inhibits or promotes jumping into somebody else's wheelhouse?
I think it promotes it, but the catch is you could get to the point where you're making a character, and this is, I'm saying on the long-term campaigns, your multi-year campaigns, where, okay, using the thief as an example, I'm going to be the guy that helps the thief out. I'm the backup thief. You run the risk of getting to the point where you could be as good as a primary thief. And then, I mean, I guess it'd be good to have two people who are really good at something in the party. But at the same time, it's like you've had a long-running thief. You're going to just start stepping on his toes as the campaign comes to a conclusion, possibly. I don't know.
I think that's an interesting concept of stepping on people's toes. I hear that a lot in Dungeons and Dragons, even, where it's like, I guess most groups now are like 3 and 4 players, which is weird to me. I'm still used to the 8. like you want 3 fighters in the group, you want 2 thieves in the, things like that. Whereas like one fails, the other can try, or when one's unconscious, the other one's still going. Whatever the reasons are, right? I don't know. I even like the idea of 2 wizards. Just have a different spell list.
Yeah, yeah.
And then what do? The first night they start sharing their spells anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't see a problem with stepping on somebody's toes unless the player's being a douche about it.
Yeah. I guess that's where it comes. I think it comes in more of the player side of things. I personally have not seen it. It was just something that I felt as a player in a long-term campaign. I don't want to step on the captain's toes as he's doing his stuff for the ship. I need to be worrying about my stuff. I think I was the bursar on the ship, actually. I handled all the money.
So have you ever encountered analysis paralysis with skill-based systems? And if so, how'd you handle it? Whether it's you as a player or as a game master dealing with a player.
For me, if I get analysis paralysis on a skill base, it's when I'm getting to the end of my points. When I have just the last handful of stuff, I'm trying to decide, where do I want to put it? Do I want to maybe knock one or two of my primary skills up a notch? Do I want to, just kind of throw them into role playing like a side skill or something? Making those kind of decisions that toward the end of character gen is where I find I have most of my analysis paralysis.
You guys were talking about point base and skill base, and I'll probably ask this to everybody. If I don't, you, Bear and Kartog, you can bring this up as well. This idea of balance, or for a point buy or a roll. Do you think that it's more important in a skill-based game to use a point-buy system to keep characters similar in terms of power points, however you want to call it? Or do you think that there could be some fun in just the randomness? Because what I'm visualizing here is that in a class-based game, you have your niche protection, right? So it's okay if your attributes or ability scores are a little weird or whatnot. You're still going to be that niche. You're still going to get the bonuses for that niche, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't need as much balance, so to speak, in terms of points and skill allocation. Do you think that in skill allocation that there has to be that balance there, otherwise it causes problems?
I don't think it's really necessary. For example, if you think of Call of Cthulhu, it's still pretty random, right? You roll for all attributes. You roll for your points. And then eventually you're going to get a bunch of points and you're going to make some decisions with those points. And what I do see is, for example, people that tend to roll, let's say, higher education, and so they have a bunch more skill points than everyone else, they tend to do things like, they are going to be the history professor that knows archaeology and knows 5 different languages and, can, shoot a pistol and so on. The guys with fewer attribute points, or maybe a guy that rolled maybe a little bit better strength and size, and so they can be a better like hand-to-hand fighter, maybe he's going to roll a gumshoe, right? And so he doesn't need to spend that many points on other skills to be an effective character, right? So there is I don't really think, I've never encountered analysis paralysis. I don't think it's really a thing unless the system is giving out way too many points at character creation. Because eventually, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say that eventually, yes, you're going to have more and more points, but they're not going to be dispensed at the same rate as in character creation. So depending on how the system does progression, you're going to get progression on skills that fail rolls or skills that succeed rolls, depending on the system. And it's going to be like 5 points, 4 points, 3 points, something like that. But you get the big bunch of points right at character creation, right? You're going, I have 360 skill points to distribute. That's when you can encounter some sort of a paralysis there. But I have never actually seen that happen. Go ahead.
So there's another one you're forgetting, which is the pick system. We have random systems, we have point buy systems, we also have pick systems, and that's what I use for my Star Trek homebrew, using a fusion of FASA and BRP that I've brought together that really works well. And I mean, like, I'm gonna do this because I'm really proud of it. And in it, at every stage during character creation, so you go to your early life, okay, pick what kind, what species you are. Well, now pick X amount of these skills at 5%. Okay, and now you're going to say, what kind of environment did you grow up in? Was it a colony? Was it a home or whatever? Okay, now pick these skills, pick 3 skills off of this list at 5% each. Okay, now you go to the academy. All right, so here's your core curriculum. You get all this. Okay, now you're outside electives. Pick X amount of skills at whatever percentage based on all of this.
That is the fastest system, isn't it? Just okay, it's been a long time since I looked at it. So
yes.
Okay.
So using that, I'm able to make a system where you can build an actual Starfleet style character. You'll get to make lots of customizing choices as you go through their life. There's lots of random ability. You can either pick or roll to see how things go. Like, I want see how my cadet cruise went. Roll, boom, aha. And then based on all that, you get a character. No points. No real random if you don't want it. Just picks, selections, choices. And I think that is the one thing we tend to forget a lot, is systems that offer choice as opposed to purchase or roll.
Yeah, like I could see being able to select things instead of rolling for them in old school just Traveler in general.
Yeah, I was going to say Traveler is a pretty good example too, right, of this.
Traveler can lick me where I poop.
So life path systems.
Yeah,
life path systems, sure, yeah.
I am a huge fan of life path stuff.
Me too.
When generating characters, even if it's just your backstory to help with that.
We know which system is the best. which system I think is the best for that? It's actually the Warhammer 40K FFG systems. They had a system where, of course, everybody sits at the same table creating characters, and you have a sheet with different choices for your life. So, for example, where you were born, what was your early education, what was a traumatic event you went through, and so on and so forth. Several like vertical tables and side by side. And then each person by himself selects, I was born in a deaf world and I experienced a great private education and I went to a war and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of it, everybody puts their sheets together and looks where they intersect. And then you can actually decide why, what's the intersection, right? Oh, I went to a war. So did Bear's character. Maybe we were in the same squad. Maybe we were enemies.
No, I tuned out because you said two things I can't stand: Warhammer 40K and Fantasy Flight games. So don't drag me into your example. Use Malachi.
They're great systems.
They're not. Systems. They're awful. They ruined Warhammer Fantasy. Thank you. Good night.
No, that's
the reason why they don't have the license.
40K, anymore. Not fantasy, right?
No, it's the same difference. It's a shit company.
Okay, well, again, not our topic for tonight, but
very different systems. But anyway.
So, Malachi, I think I asked you a follow-up. If not, we'll get back to it in a moment. Let's go over to Bear. Bear, what do you see as the primary advantages and disadvantages of skill-based tabletop RPG systems, and how have they shaped your approach to gaming?
So, one of the things that you're going to run into a problem. This is something that I've really tried to get rid of in my. I got to come up with a cool name for it, but anyway, my Star Trek hack system is. If you ever look at the FASA game, oh my dear God, xenobiology, exobiology, astrobiology, mechanical engineering, systems engineering, spatial engineering, warp systems, blah, 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 blah. And every Star Trek game up until the new one, which is I don't like, from by Star Trek Adventures by Modiphius, does this. They create these laundry list skills that are like every little thing. But you ever watch Star Trek? I think we've all seen Star Trek, right? There was never a moment we saw when he said, "My God, Scotty, we need to find a way to fix the warp drive." And Scotty goes, Captain, can I help you? You need a mechanical engineer for this, and I'm not so good at it, but Tavish, she's a really great mechanical engineer. No. They had a skill called engineering. They might have specialties under it that provide a bonus, that they're particularly good at those things, but they have a parent skill. And that's what I had to do to avoid creating this insane list of skills you don't need. You don't need that many skills. Now, it can be dangerous. You can cut the list too tight.
Yep.
And then not have enough skills. And that can be really, really bad. And then you get the Savage World element of samey characters, right? So you have to basically fold certain things like sciences, engineering, things like that together. And you have to expand certain things like athletics. You have to have the swimming, the running, the jumping, the climbing. Even all of those could fall under just one skill called athletics, just to prevent yourself from trimming the list too tight. So I would say that's it. Just making sure your skill list is functional, logical, and allows for a little bit of diversity amongst character by having a broader range, but not too broad a range.
Yeah, Star Wars D6 does this really well.
I get a follow-up question before you get to jump all over. Star
Come
Wars
on.
D6 doesn't do this well. Star Wars D6 is the reason I had to change things, because Star Wars D6 cuts the list too tight.
I don't think so.
Well, before my follow-up question, one of the things that I've struggled with in the games that I'm creating is that skill list, right? I love a long skill list, but then you're like, okay, so how many different levels of chemistry and botany do I need? Yeah, but it's tough because you want to allow for unique characters, but then certain skills will never get picked unless you have a group of like 12 people, right? So yeah, I absolutely agree with that and get that. But in what way do skill-based systems promote or hinder, because it can do both, character development? I know some of this is, it's easy, but
promote or hinder character growth.
Yeah, so skill-based systems like character development.
Any system where you can just spend points on any skills you want after the session's over in a skill-based system is fundamentally broken, because players are going to spend it on the things that they want to be better at, not the things their characters have been using a lot of. BRP fixes this wonderfully by making you only able to advance skills you use, creating an atrophy or entropy effect for your skill list, and that is the only way to do it. So yes, it can be hindered if you just have an open, wide system of improve anything you want with your experience points. And then you'll just get characters that are very, very focused on, whatever the game requires them to be really focused on. But if you make them expand the skills that they use instead, like the BRP system, it's actually going to focus the character into what are they doing. And if they want to get better at swimming, they better go do some swimming, that type of idea.
Yeah, and the best you can get for the XP-based skill systems is a note in the book telling the GM, when players advance skills, they should only be advancing the skills they used in that session. And we know how well people listen to the rules in the books.
Yeah, the One Ring does pretty much what a BRP does, and you only advance the skills that you're actually using.
Okay.
And the chance of you advancing the skill goes down the better you are at that skill. So that you don't get a geometric progression of like getting better at something. Eventually you have attack 5 million, and that would screw up things.
Yeah.
But the reason why I said D6 doesn't have what you think it has is because if you look at the D6 skill list, it's actually super tight as a skill list because it's tied to each stat and there's just a limited number of skills under each stat. So as a result, because you already start off, unless it's an advanced skill, with your die code from the stat in the skill, players aren't going to improve certain skills because they don't need to, because they already got 4 die 6 at it and it comes up once every 5 sessions. There's no need to ever use that skill or make that skill better. That is why choking on my own bullshit. That is why I don't feel D6 is a good skill system. It's a great system. I love it to tears, but I don't think it's a good skill system.
I think it is good because it allows for, the kind of like almost like a skill tree where the attribute is actually just a skill header, right? And then you get a skill, like, so for example, you go from dexterity to blaster, and then you really love your Sorrow Sub X14 blaster, and that's your specialization skill. So you can choose to focus on a character that does more of the general stuff, so a dex-based character, or a character that is blaster focused, or a character that knows one particular weapon really, really well.
We have a $20 chat card.
Nope.
Well, no. I let people finish their thoughts before I read it. But like,
why are you listening to me? It's not my show, man. It's this guy's show. Why do you fuckers listen to me? I don't get it.
So
because we're the panel, right? He's the host. He has to listen to us.
Oh, okay. Then give me money, bitch.
By the way, because with this super chat, we now will have a giveaway during segment 5 tonight. So it's Rick. Yeah, Bear, we'll make sure Bear takes second place or second to last place.
Can I stop being second and third in these goddamn things? I just want to win once.
Law Dog says, what about the skills that might be used off camera, so to speak? Can you advance those at the end of a session?
Not normally, no, but if you introduce a concept that I use in Heroic that I got from Aaron Alston called blue booking, you could absolutely do that by basically saying between sessions, my character is going to focus on improving this, and then you'll let them have one advancement roll on it because that's what their character was doing between adventures.
An alternative is what the One Ring does, which is have basically an off-adventuring phase of the adventure where you spend several months doing other things, and then you can tell the DM what you're doing, what do you want to do during this phase, and then you can actually have skills rolled during this off time, right? So that's one way of doing this.
Okay.
Just an aside, the One Ring is a very, very good system, which most people don't talk about for some reason.
Well, so actually, I think he even paid for it. I'm not sure, but we had a request to do it last year. It didn't fit into the cards for me when I was doing all the Free League games, and the reason was because all the Free League games are pretty quick. Like they're thick books, but let's be honest, not a lot of text on the page. Guess which one of those games is different? Yeah. The One Ring is definitely a wall of text, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But it is a wall of text, and I just couldn't fit it in properly last year. It's one of those games I would have to fully read before I even put it on camera. But it is one that's on our list of things that we want to do. It's on the bucket list. Just it won't be in 2026 either. But yeah, I know there's some folks out there. What's that?
Technically, it's not a Free League game. think it's a Crucible 7.
Well, yeah, but Free League publishes it.
Publishes it. That's
Really
all.
bought and did the second edition, right? I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
only
second
DM'd
2E,
the
2E.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have only DM'd first edition.
I was about to ask that.
So, but it's originally a Crucible 7 thing. Francesco Nepitello, the same guy that did Lex Arcana, the Italian role-playing game.
Oh, that one sounds really neat, but I was reading back, watching a video of character generation. I was kind of like, I don't know.
It's not a rules light system. Nepitello doesn't do
Yeah.
rules light systems ever. All of
I
his
know
systems are
TBE
kinda
likes
complicated.
Lex Arcana.
Okay. Did I ask everybody a direct? Did you get the direct question card, or did I? Or did you just get? Were you just responding to follow-ups?
I don't remember.
I don't
No,
think so
we're
because
moving
I
on.
got it and Bear got it.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay.
So, what do you see as the primary advantages and disadvantages of skill-based tabletop RPG systems, and how have they shaped your approach to gaming?
Well, we've talked about most of the advantages. I was going to mention one of the disadvantages, which I have seen before, is that the versatility and the point distribution can be a weakness if the DM is inexperienced, hasn't really understood the rules correctly or fully, and there's a devious player at his table. And this, of course, can happen with random tables, people that you have never met before, and so on. But I've seen it happen even with friends, technically, right? If a devious player wants to abuse a skill-based system, I think it's easier than a class-based system, because if there are certain skills which, if not really adjudicated correctly, may break the game, then the guy may just, for his own benefit, focus on those skills and maybe hope the DM doesn't know what he's doing or doesn't know exactly how the skill is limited and so on. I've seen it happen in GURPS, and I've seen it happening in DC Heroes, right? So it's a possibility. It's something that is easier to do in skill-based systems than in class-based systems. So I think that's one of the disadvantages. But again, another difficulty, potential difficulty, I would say, is the relative difficulty of the system for beginners, right? If you're going to explain an RPG system to a beginner, it's probably going to take a little more time to explain a skill-based system than it would take to explain a class-based system. I still think, going back all the way back to segment one, you learn whatever system is being presented to you. But I still think it's going to take more time, and it's possibly going to lead to more confusion. But this is all a matter of DM experience. How much do you? And I think this relates a lot to group experience. How much your group is able to digest in terms of systems. If you have an experienced group, they'll just pick up a new system, whatever it is. Doesn't matter if it's class-based or skill-based. If it's a new group, if it's something that you have just assembled, or new players, people that have never played before, then there will probably be differences between a class-based system and a skill-based system. And I think the skill-based system is going to be a little slower. It's probably going to, if we ever get to the session 0 thing, it's probably going to be a longer session 0, and it's going to be just making characters, right? You're not going to do anything else during that session.
Well, you just knocked out 4 different follow-up questions. That's good. That's what the follow-up questions are for, in case people don't ask things. So that's a good answer. So my question for you then becomes, how do skill-based systems cater to players seeking niche or hybrid roles?
Well, 2 things differently, right? Niche and hybrid. If they are seeking a niche role, I think it's just as easy to make a niche character in a skill-based system as in a class-based system, especially if you understand the system pretty well, because you're going to spend the points where they are required, where they're going to have a greater effect. If you're seeking a hybrid role, it's even easier, because then you have just to spread them. But it raises the possibility that you may make mistakes, right? Choose a skill that doesn't apply or isn't really that important, and maybe later you're gonna, I wish I had spent those 25 skill points on something else. Maybe the system that Bear mentioned earlier, where you pick things, may be easier to it may be easier to accomplish this than in a pure point buy system, right? For skills. So I think skills are always going to be more flexible. They're always going to lead to more flexibility during character design, and they will allow experienced players to take maximum advantage of their knowledge. Right? If you're even if you are a very experienced D&D player, if you're making a BX character, there's not a lot of stuff that you can do to make your character like shine more than others. Right? There is a base limitation there. If you are a very experienced player making a character in Call of Cthulhu or Traveler or Pendragon or anything like that, you're probably going to be able to squeeze more juice out of the character just by virtue of knowledge, of system knowledge. Right?
Okay. This is for all of you guys.
Is it?
What about the? Was that?
Nothing. Snark.
What?
It was snark.
Oh, okay. What about going one step further with that question and people who make, I know some people don't believe this is a real thing, but I do, non-viable characters. Either they're playing so much against type that the character's broken, or they're trying to be, and I usually see this on the hardcore role-playing side, which I kind of consider myself part of, but they make characters that so don't fit anything because it's a personal vision of theirs that the character's not useful in the game at all.
Allow me to tell you the tale of a wee boy named Ithane. Oh, Ithane on paper was a fierce archer, a master of daggers, someone you never wanted to fuck with because he'd fuck you up right back. At least that's what he was on paper. In play, he's a weirdly little wily bitch who can't handle things, likes to walk off in a huff and hide in the woods, and can't accept fate and destiny coming to him, and feels properly useless to the group because he's leaned away from what makes him good and let the story take him into the places where he has weakness.
Thane's still alive, though.
Only by the grace of God and Cody.
But here's the difference. No, actually, with what you're saying, here's the difference. It's almost the opposite, though. My character is effective, or can be effective. He chooses not to be in some of those. He's growing into it slowly, probably too slowly for a game we play once every 3 months. But he's growing into it. But he wasn't a broken character in terms of he can't do anything. He's actually probably the best fighter in the group. If my roles would have been better.
My point is that basically there's two types of broken character, mechanically and spiritually. And Ithane is spiritually broken, not mechanically.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
A mechanically broken character can be spiritually strong. Hungar's character was a perfect example of that. Philip was, on paper, was nothing. He had nothing. He was a useless character because on paper he wasn't really very good. But his presence and the way he role-played him for those first couple of sessions was very important, very strong. So I honestly think the idea of a mechanically broken character being unplayable, no. And a spiritually broken character is even more playable, in my opinion, because that's what makes them interesting to watch. And for any of those who didn't understand what I said, my mic sometimes does that when I talk too close to it, it goes down. So I'll bring it up again. Basically,
you were fine. What you were just saying, it was when you were talking into the mic, you were so muffled. It was very hard.
It dropped my volume down to like minimal.
Oh, you're coming through to me at least. You're coming through just fine.
I just jacked it up again.
Oh, Bear is quiet. Okay, they're saying you're quiet. You're not to me, which is weird, but okay.
Yeah, well, that's because, you love me. You hear me. You see me for who I am. Anyway. Yeah.
But Max, as to your question, I would say, the ultimate troll character, right? The guy who I am the jack of all trades, so I'm going to put 5% into accounting, 5% into swimming, 5% into language, Italian, 5% into that would be the ultimate troll character. You could theoretically make that character, but let's be honest. If you're playing with people, you're going to turn to him and go like, "Dude, no, don't do that." No. Right? That's being an asshole.
And honestly, that's kind of the point that I was trying to make in here is that setting is going to imply some stuff. The game master needs to take a bit of control of this. Bear made the point about a thing being spiritually broken. And look, I take some onus on that, expecting to play, and this is not a complaint. I'm just putting it out there as for some understanding, at least once a month and having some growth. Well, That has been happening. So I do kind of have to grow him a little quicker. And that's in the cards. But on a mechanic side, that's harder to do because if you don't get the number of points to raise your character, you're not going to be able to get those points in there. And just because you got a 75% in hairdressing, well, how do you expect to use that in the world?
Well, that'd be a Malachi poor character choice, is what that would be.
But there's one way, for example, that games can not prevent it, but make this a little harder to do, is with templates, for example. You can get templates that give you a certain number of points in a certain number of important skills, and then a series of points, and extra points that you can spend, at your discretion. So
kind of like his picks that he was saying before, as an example, not the only example, but as an example.
Yeah, for Star Wars D6 does this as well. Templates can give you some sort of a purpose or a focus for a character without actually determining exactly how your character is going to look like. So templates can do that for you.
Okay.
I remember a buddy of mine. He made an experiment. He made the most powerful character he could in Mage. He took all the worst disadvantages to do it. He was a paraplegic and all this other stuff. It's like, why would you even try and play something like that? I can understand from an experimental, let's see what the system can do, thought experiment. But actually putting that character at a table, I couldn't.
It depends on what those disadvantages are. As a Mage player, if those disadvantages are inherently horrible to the group, like you have, I forget what they all are, but you have some sort of rage, or you're vulnerable to everything, or whatever. That's just like, why are you here? Like the paraplegic thing, I could actually see a Mage doing that. Maybe that's what enhances your magical powers. But then it's up to the game master to do paradox. And if you're not doing paradox properly, you're giving him a break on paradox because he's in a wheelchair. That's a problem. So, but to the question is, do you think that skill-based games, and I don't mean facilitate as like, you can make any character you want, but I mean, do you think that it tends to be more trolly, where if you're playing and that's, going with your term, because I don't think it necessarily has to be a troll. It could just be somebody with such a cool idea that just doesn't work out. Where class-based games kind of force you're going to get your bonus to hit, or you're going to get your spells, or you're going to get whatever it happens to be, kind of forces you, even if you try to break it a little bit, look in Beckme, or at least in Rule Cyclopedia, you can have a 3 strength and be a fighter. Would that be a troll character? Yeah. But it's a -3 to everything. Does it break the game? Not necessarily.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
There's remember the action figure line from the 80s? The one wizard, he statted out in the one book. He has a higher strength and intelligence, the one evil wizard.
Okay.
So, if you want, you can. But honestly, when it comes to stuff like that, I'm of the mind that if you want to try something on the table, fine, go ahead. But be willing to say, be willing to accept, and that might not be working out, and you have to make another character.
Yeah, I think the group is going to kind of like guide this sort of thing and go like, oh, maybe do you really want to do that? Is that a character that's going to help us? I think this is not particularly different from class-based systems to skill-based systems. Groups are generally going to like limit some of your choices if they are aware of what you're making, right?
Sure.
So that's another point. I have met game masters that like players to make characters apart from the rest of the group.
That's not me.
I do not understand how that works, but they like doing that, and then meshing the group during the first session. I think that's potentially going to lead to problems, and if you give too much freedom for them to screw around with the system, this might lead to problems. But I don't see it often. Honestly, I think in my tables it has never happened.
Yeah, I have never encountered players that want to create their characters without the rest of the group.
Really? I wish I had your players.
No, I remember last time I ran Star Wars Saga Edition, everybody just all around that table making their characters. That's
how we did it, but it was like, can I just make mine on Thursday night so I get a chance to look at the book? No, we're all making them on Sunday when we're playing the game. That's the way it's going to be. Maybe online gaming is a little different. But at a table, no, our session 0 is going to, because again, back in the day we didn't have session 0. We had come on over, let's make characters.
Yeah.
So
that was our, I guess that was our introductory session, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I always did that. The only time I ever had somebody that wanted to make a character outside the group was when I had a group established and somebody wanted to join in.
True. I think I might be derailing this a little bit. We got to get back on topic of skill-based systems. I think we covered this to pretty well here. Do you guys have any final comments on the advantages, disadvantages of skill-based systems before we hit some chat?
Nope. I was going to say something about the versatility of the system, right?
Sure, go ahead.
If you're doing a skill-based system, what it's going to allow is for something that you guys talked before about, being backups to the main guy. Depending on the system, this actually can work even better in that you make characters that are complementary to each other. So, for example, in I'm going to use Star Wars D6 a lot because I DM'd a lot of it. You're going to get characters, for example, that are teams. So, for example, the pilot, the engineer, and the gunner on the spaceship. These guys are going to have skills that complement each other, and it will probably happen that the engineer also can shoot a blaster decently. He's not as good as the pilot, but he's decent. The gunner is going to be really, really good with starship gunnery. Maybe he's not so good with blasters, but he's okay with it. And the pilot may also have some mechanical skill. That's something that the skill-based systems allow for more complementary characters more easily. Classes would force you into choosing like, oh yeah, my guy is an engineer, so he's going to have engineering skills. His combat skills may not be up to snuff, right? If a general fight breaks out, he's going to be kind of useless. So the versatility is also a very big bonus for skill-based systems.
Yeah, that was almost always me. We talked a little bit before the stream about that. In Star Wars D6, I almost always played the pilot or the engineer technician character because nobody wanted to do that. It's always had the Jedi and the Han Solo types, the Blaster types, whatever. But so I was like, fine, somebody's got to fix the ship, right?
Chewbacca.
Well, except for I could speak.
Chewbacca
All right.
could speak. He just couldn't speak basic.
So next segment is going to be choosing. How are we going to choose between the two? Now, I bet you these guys have answered this question to some degree already. That's kind of the way the fourth segment always works out. It's meant to wrap up everything that we've already talked about. And so we'll see here in just a moment what's new or if we've kind of discussed it all. But it's going to be choosing between class-based and skill-based systems for your table. But before we get there, let's hit some of these super chats. Again, folks, this chat's been just continually going on tonight. I appreciate you guys. I'm reading them all. Obviously, we don't put a lot of them on the screen. Super chats we do, but I do appreciate what you guys are saying, and I am reading them as best I can. So let's see. I think we said we'd read this one, right? Classes are more railroady.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we did because I see the Aristotelian one after that. Hey, I said the word right. So I got a couple that actually none of these are super chats. Sure, we make the minimum, and y'all stop super chatting. That's cool. All right, let's. So Lord Mattias says there's no niche protection, which is why I like class games better. I thought I started down because I kind of thought it was a little bit of a hot take compared to what we're saying today. So he likes the niche protection.
Oh no, my 7C game. I think it was handy that all of us could fight.
But what was that?
Depends on the game, baby.
The 7C game I was in, it was handy that we could all fight. I
mean, that's one niche. There are plenty of niches.
The fighter type. I mean, we could all fight. The captain could fight. I could fight. I mean,
okay. All right. Okay. We'll move on to the next one.
I think all of us could actually do some theming too.
I just started because I was wondering if you guys would have anything to say about the niche protection. Here's the next one. There it is. William Silva says, I think skill-based systems need a quote-unquote post-game system to allow players to spend XP on possibly something along the lines of a prestige class. I hate prestige class. I hate Lego characters with a, oh my God, a murderous homicidal passion. With that said, the rest of what you said I actually think is a good idea.
I will say I do not like prestige classes in 3, but I think they work in D20 Modern in Star Wars.
All right, let me make everybody drink. Earth Dawn.
Oh, I got so much to say about that later.
Earth Dawn allows you to spend your legend points on your weapon. You're going to learn the history of the weapon, and you're going to spend your legend points, and you're going to make a weapon better. Why?
You just took my final thoughts away from me.
Not because the damn weapon is going to become magical. It was already magical. You just didn't know about it. That's the greatness of that's one of the great things about that system.
Yes.
You have XP to spend on things other than just your skills or attributes or whatever.
It was that comment there. Dude, I've got it in my notes already. I'm going to talk about the same thing, my final comments, because of that comment there. That's awesome. Great minds think alike sometimes. Or just crazy people that, sniff the ether.
That's one thing I remember from, I think it was, I can't remember the system, but like if you have a player that spends points on a specific item, that they not really take that item away from them because they actually spent some of their.
So you're talking a game like Hero System or Besom or whatever. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Besom. Yeah, so I mean, you can, like Besom, you can spend XP on physical items rather than on skills and stuff. I think it all depends on the system.
No. Well, yeah, I agree. But I think some of the point is like you were talking 7C. It blows my mind that you basically ran out of points. I don't want to do with these points anymore. And I'm just thinking like as soon as you're saying that, and then he makes that comment, I'm thinking Earth Dawn, dude, we're clamoring. Once you hit 4th circle, well, at least at first edition, once you hit 4th circle, it's like, I'm not getting enough points because I can spend them here and 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 I can spend them here. And I want to spend them everywhere. Group pattern.
Well, I had, my character was a former musketeer. So I built him as a dueling, kind of like a combat monkey initially. Left-handed, I had my attacking with a rapier, my finesse were all max, so that's 10. 10 keeps 6 right there on 10-sided dice. And I think I had other stuff added in yet.
Okay. I mean, we weren't trying to dive into the game system. It's one of those things that I just found odd that basically you ended the game like well, I've maxed out everything I can do. Like that just seems weird to me. But
there, I think it's a system. It's the fact that like White Wolf, you had so many dots for everything, and you maxed out at 5. And depending on how you spent your XP, how you hoarded your XP, you could max out. And one of the things about 7C is you also had a exploit weakness, which was every swordsman. You had your swordsman schools. Mine was like Valroy. It was a.
I think we might be diving too far down a rabbit hole here.
Well, I'll finish up.
Okay.
Like I would hoard XP so I could build up my exploit weakness, so I could get mastery in my school. Because the only way you get exploit weakness is fighting somebody who has your school.
Okay.
So I think as players, we tend to be XP hoarders, and that might have actually influenced what happened later.
No, that's fair. Yeah, so I agree 100% with violence solves everything, at least for the purposes of the World of Darkness. I often saw that game masters gave out too much XP. That was one of the weird things is players have this weird notion that every time they sit down at a session that they're required to raise something afterward. Sorry, but
I'm just saying.
Like, I saw that a lot when I played both Vampire and Mage. The Ascension, like, no, you got 4 experience points for being here. Yeah, but it cost me 7 to raise my lowest thing. Well, then guess what? Play the next session, and you might get 3 more, and you can raise it. What is it with this? There's somebody in chat, I forget who it was, who made a comment a couple weeks ago. It's like that's basically somebody who just wants the XP. I want the level. Well, then to me, I want to make a game that has 100 levels in it, where every little thing. Because I don't like fast progression. I just don't. But because I'm diving down a rabbit hole too far here, to keep it on skill-based games. But I think that's one of the things that's cool about skill-based games. And you guys have mentioned this, and other people in chat have mentioned this, is class seems to go synonymously to most part. We can always find differences with level, and skill-based guys kind of go with more varied progression. Sure. But I couldn't ever picture myself running out of point, like in a BRP game, or
I think
No, it
also
would probably never happen.
yeah, it also will depend on how long your game is. I mean, I was playing this character for a couple years, and
2.5 years every week, 8-hour sessions. Their characters got to 8th and 9th circle. He knows what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
And
Yeah.
if you
we
go
played
to,
longer.
Call
Okay.
of Cthulhu, I DM'd one of the two let's say big campaigns, big published campaigns that I ran in my life was Masks of Nyarlathotep. And Masks of Nyarlathotep lasts for a long time. The characters were nowhere near, spending out everything and like needing no more points. Everybody was begging for points all the time, begging for points, begging for ways to use their skills so that they could get better at those skills, right? Basically, they were trying things out with different skills so that they could raise them up, but it was never a question of like having too much of it. It's never happens. Not in BRP, at least.
BRP is the greatest role-playing game ever made.
It is definitely one of the better ones. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if it's the greatest, but then again, to be fair, while as much as I talk about Earth Dawn and we talk to Kevin from Palladium, I don't know if there is a perfect or best role-playing game. There's just a lot I like and a lot I don't like.
Sorry, did I stutter?
Sorry, sir. All right, let's get this last comment in so we can move into the final segment for tonight. Francois Rocher says, Palladium Books is currently suffering under that skills issue. Talking about too many of them, okay? Shadow skills inserted in random books and some randomly specific ones for little reason. Here's my take on this, and maybe this is something we can talk to Kevin Sambita about one of the times when he comes on. My take on this is I disagree with that comment, but I 100% understand where it comes from. There's like a list out there that somebody made that compiled every single skill that came in Palladium, and it's like 1,000 skills, it seems. Here's the issue here's the take that I have on this. Number one, it's to create a very particular niche for a very certain type of character. It's not necessarily intended for player characters, but it's also an option for player characters who want to have that. I think if you rely on that, and by you, I'm talking the general you out there, apparently that's another thing I have to say, is when you rely on that, like, well, this skill's in this book, so that means you don't know it. I think you're kind of making the skill list in the core book, I say, weakened. The core book is enough. Who's going to take mime? Nobody takes mime in Palladium, except if you're playing in the land where that's culturally important. So then it becomes important for characters from that setting. And there are a bunch of other ones, the diving way into these scientific ones. If it's important to your campaign, use it. If it's not important to your campaign, don't use it. If it's important to a character, like I want my character to have some real niche. I don't want biology. I want viral biology. That's it. I don't know about evolutionary science. I don't know about botany. But I dive into the subatomic, or I guess really tiny, the microscopic world of viruses. Right? Fine. Don't know what'll come up. But if that's the niche your character wants, we can have a skill for it, or it probably already exists in the game somewhere. I think that's the purpose of them. They're not meant for, well, the skill list is now 100 skills bigger. It's now 150 skills bigger. It's 300 skills bigger. That's my take. I might be wrong on it because I've heard a lot of complaints about the Palladium thing over the years, which essentially I come down to is like, don't use all that stuff then unless it's important to your setting. Go ahead, Bear.
Too many skills is like too many spells or too many superpowers. Any game that tells you on the back of the box, we have 50 character classes, 500 spells, over 1,000 superpowers to make your character with, are just blowing smoke. Because what it shows is unfortunately bloat game design, which is the danger of all games, right? This is something I had to really consider when I was doing Heroic. I had to look at the powers, I had to look at all the stuff, and I wanted people to do the Heroic way. Tell me what your power does and we'll give it a rank. And then we'll be off to the races, no worries. And then I found out from people, oh, there's no list of powers. I need powers. Why is there no powers? Because I just told you, make your own fucking powers. There's a few guidelines and then you go. You just make up your own powers. People want that stuff. The problem is that the want can sometimes outpace the need or efficiency of those things. And as a result of that, hi, Beans, games.
Finally.
All right, apparently I'm done. Go ahead.
I just want to say I will take the Adventurers League original rule, Core book +1 when creating a risk character.
I hate that shit. Sorry. Core book +1 annoys the crap out of me. Like, people think it's a solution. It's not. It's just more problems waiting to happen because everybody picks a different +1. And now you got to mix, especially in 3rd edition. When one person would have like the book of nine swords.
Yeah.
Like, no, come on, man. You know what I did one time for my core book +1? The book of erotic fiction of erotic fantasy. I was like, there, that's my +1. I'm gonna play a courtesan.
What you mentioned there, one of the examples of that is 3rd edition D&D. They had so many different. They decided to split up all the immunities to magic for monsters into different things like adamantine, silver, cold iron, and this and that. And then fighters started carrying like wagon loads of different magic weapons that they needed to be able to vanquish all different sorts of creatures. It kind of go back, clown shoes. It became clown shoes. Bunch of magic weapons +1 magic weapons that had a specific that were made of a specific material just for defeating certain monsters. Right? It was a little weird.
This is clown shoes right here. It's there.
All right, let's get into the final segment because I feel like
all of us fast tonight.
Well, it is, but we got to stay on topic a little bit. Well, it's part of the new format too. I do want to talk about this Full Metal Dragon after the show is over. I think after this part of the show is over, when just on the rando part of the stream, I think it'd be an interesting conversation. I disagree, but I'm not exactly sure why you feel that way, but that's what it comes down to. So I'm going to start that and we can talk about that later. And then if I don't put this on the screen here, there we go. Look at that. Somebody is stalking us right now. Heathen Dog with a comment. That's why I like games of specialties. It usually allows you to be instantly better at what you want by a little bit and allows a new skill with no new rules.
Heathen Dog, I 100% agree with you on that.
For example,
earlier about talking about Star Trek stuff.
Well, for example, you have Shadowrun does that, right?
I've never read that game. It doesn't exist. What are you talking about?
It does. Where you get your skill, then you have a focus and a specialty, or especially in I forget what the order that it goes into, but it allows you to dive into it a little bit better and become more niche with it without hurting anything else. All right, let's get into the last segment here. Just a reminder for folks, it's going to be about choosing between class-based and skill-based systems. Before I do that, I got to do a little bit of advertising, or what do you want to call it here? That wasn't it. That's it. It's one of those images. Just as a reminder, Game Master Insight airs live on Fridays at 6 p.m. Central Time, except for the last Friday of the month. Hey, Heathen Dog, since you're here, remember, last Friday of the month, members only. Once this live stream ends, the full live stream will remain available to YouTube members only, while these 4 panel discussions will post publicly a month later. If you enjoy this discussion, please like this video, subscribe to all the panelist channels, which you can find in the description. And once again, chat's moving. I appreciate you guys. It's been a great night. We got one more segment to go. Hope you guys hang out. Thank you to everybody that's here. And also, we did meet our goal, so we will have a giveaway in segment 5. Oops. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Get off the screen. Oh, put that on. There you go. All right. So, final question. We are back to, no, I'm not going to lie. I am not a liar here. We know who's actually supposed to be in the first spot. So we're going to, actually, before we do that, we're going to be talking about choosing between class-based and skill-based systems. But before we do that, Bear, you get to start here. Before we go into our last segment, we'll have our panel briefly remind us who they are, what content they create, and where you can find them on the internet. Go ahead, Bear.
I am a meat puppet. Leave me alone.
You said you weren't going to do that today.
All right, fine.
Is it fine?
Fine. Go buy my book. It's on Amazon. Go buy it. It's thick. You can read it. It's good.
God,
and it's cheap.
It's probably better than the Brandon Sanderson book.
$10 for the novel print. Go buy my book.
There you go. Go buy Covenant. You saw the cover there. You can find it on Amazon, right?
Yeah, under Andrew Collis. It's Covenant Andrew Collis. Collas.
His pseudonym. All right.
My pseudonym, my pen name.
All right. Cart Dog, you.
Well, I create nothing. I do not have a YouTube channel. I do not have, anything online so far. So stay tuned. Eventually, in a month, maybe 2, I'm probably going to have something to advertise here.
Maybe a day. Who knows?
And Malachi.
Links is below. Come if you want. I'm gonna post some stuff here soon, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with Bear. Keep it simple.
You should excite people, make them want to come. Like, you
Oh my
need to
God,
come.
Malachi! You should
This is the
see him
best one
playing
ever.
Codex Albana. He's the best player in the whole game. I mean, if you want to see
Yeah.
Stoic, you have not seen Stoic until you've seen Malachi deal with a crisis situation. Malachi, the Wolfmen are attacking. Your friend is fighting them. What do you do?
Okay, so Bear has now busted on both of our characters in his game. I think Malachi and I should go make our own game with hookers.
Not done. Hang on.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Now I'm done. Okay.
All right. Hey, let's actually, you know what, just because I lose my mind if I don't do this, we are going to ask to start with Bear in this final question here. So when deciding between class-based and skill-based tabletop RPG systems, what factors do you consider? Remember, you're talking to an audience, not to me. What factors do you consider, and how do these systems align with your gaming style and preferences?
Campaign, players, what I want to achieve, how long I think it's going to run, and what ultimately my goal is for the campaign. The longer it runs, the more house-created homebrew setting it is for me, the more likely I'm going to go with a skill-based system. Specifically, I'm going to go with BRP at the end of the day. If I'm just doing, beer and pretzels, we're getting together to bash and trash and have a good time and just not really care, I'm going to bust out the OSC or the BX because it's fun and it's easy to do at that point in time. What was the other part of that question?
So how do these systems align with your gaming style? I mean, I think you made it clear throughout the first three segments, but you can, mash it into a final statement there.
How does it combine with my gaming style? I like characters. I like story. I am a self-confessed, dirty, filthy story player. I am not a story gamer. I hate story games. I think they're the antithesis of actual role-playing games. There needs to be a chance for failure. There needs to be a chance for success. There needs to be random dynamics. But that doesn't mean you can't tell a story. If a class-based system will facilitate the type of story I'm looking to tell with that game, let's bust out the D&D and let's have some fun. If it doesn't, well, let's bust out the BRP and have some fun. And if it's a superhero game, fuck you, we're playing heroic. But I want to play Champions and Mutants and Masterminds. Good. Go find another game.
In what ways, if any, this is probably a bad question for you because I know the answer to this, but let's see. In what ways does player preference impact your decision between system types?
Fuck and all. I might have a conversation with you guys, and I might say, hey, what do you want to play? And then you give me some suggestions, and then I'll make a decision. Once I make a decision, you can be guaranteed it's the decision that I think at that moment in time is going to best suit what I need. The Palladium game was a mistake to use Palladium. It didn't fit and didn't match the style of game I wanted to run, which is why switching to BRP after the first few sessions really, really made the game come together in a better way because the system was getting in the way of what I wanted to do. Not to say Palladium's a bad game. It's a great game, and if I was running Palladium Fantasy for specifically the Palladium Fantasy world, it would be, but for my world, it wasn't matching.
So I want to follow up with that because one of the things that I hear a lot, especially in our chat, well, I can play any system. It's the players that matter, not the game system. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'll go with the implication of what you just said there, which is I'm kind of with you. I think system does matter. I'm absolutely one of those people that think system matters.
Yep.
So what do you say about that? Trying to keep it on the context of class versus skill based, but to the folks like, oh, it shouldn't matter, Bear, what system you're running.
Well, those are what I like to call wrong, and that's fine. They're allowed to be wrong. They're allowed to happily trip down wrong ass road all the way down to whoops, I fucked up lane. The point being that for me and the games I run, I need systems that's what I'm looking for. Complement the game setting, the style of game, etc., etc. I would never in a million fucking years run a class and level sci-fi Star Trek type game. And I've seen them. They exist. I'm a 4th level captain. What?
Really?
Fuck off. Get out of my house.
That exists?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a few of them. And I just think they're really, really, really not the right system for those types of games. And this is where the D20 for everything crowd or the 5e for everything crowd gets up my ass sideways.
Or the meow for everything crowd.
BRP is an amazing system. I honestly feel it is probably the greatest system ever created for role-playing games in the absolute depth and breadth of it. But Super World, which I have, is a shit superhero system, and it uses BRP, and it's a real shame that Steve Perrin died because he was working on a new version of it, and I would have liked to have seen what he's done with 40 years of game design behind him to see what changes he would have made. But the point is that it wasn't a good system for that. So BRP, not going to be my choice for a superhero game.
Okay. I think I can move over to Kartog here. So when deciding between class-based and skill-based tabletop RPG system, what factors do you consider, and how do these systems align with your gaming style and preferences?
Well, I set aside a few points to talk about. Bear has already talked about a few of them. The first is group history.
You're welcome.
Like, what is your group's general experience? Have they played mostly class-based systems? Have they played mostly skill-based systems? Have they played both of them? How much have they played each of them? How much do they enjoy each? That's a part of the definition of like which one you're going to choose. Another, and my way of putting it may be a little different, but it echoes a lot of what Bear said. System matching setting. Systems and settings to me are interlocked. They almost cannot be disconnected from each other. It happens sometimes, but I think it's more accidental than actually purposeful. I have, like Bear said about never running a class-based system with Star Trek. It's like, again, Star Wars is easy to use as an example because it has so many systems. Star Wars D6 feels like you are in the original trilogy movies. When you're playing, it's fluid. It goes like you are in those movies. Star Wars D20 is a great sci-fi system. It is not Star Wars. Combat starts, it bogs it down, and people just it turns into D&D in space, right? So
in space.
So I think the setting and the system almost cannot be, extricated from each other. But then DM's personal preference matters, right? If you like class-based systems more, then why torture yourself, right? Just tell the group, hey, I just don't like skill-based systems. I'm going to run class. If they don't like it, well, you can either choose to find a new group or, torture yourself a little bit. So I think it makes a difference when you're choosing whether you will feel comfortable DMing it. And if you feel comfortable DMing either type of system, then you're going to be able to choose based on whichever system is more appropriate to whatever game you want to run, right? So for me, the one that trumps everything is still the setting, right? The setting is going to dictate more or less what kind of system is appropriate for it. I do not like running, for example, I would never even imagine, I can't even picture a different game system for running an Earth Dawn game in bar save, right? I just can't picture it. I don't know. Even BRP would have trouble dealing with it. And I agree, BRP is an incredible system, very versatile, can handle all sorts of stuff. But I would still prefer to run Earth Dawn for an Earth Dawn game. Right?
Oh, I have no idea about Earth Dawn, so
yeah.
So on BRP, but no.
I still think the setting trumps everything, right? And
I agree.
It will dictate the sort of system that is more appropriate. So that's my 2 cents for it.
Don't answer this question. I just have to ask it. Otherwise, I'm going to not sleep tonight. So what are your thoughts on the rhetorical question? What are your thoughts on Savage Earth Dawn and which was actually pretty close to the Earth Dawn system, and the worst one, Pathfinder Earth Dawn. All right. So yeah. All right. So Bear answered one of the follow-up questions, and I've decided I'm not going to ask the same one to you. So I'm going to switch to this one. How do you foresee future trends? And I'm going to put a little input on this one just to kind of focus the question a little bit more. How do you foresee future trends between class-based and skill-based system affecting your gaming choices? Now, the reason why I have this question in here is because I remember when I first started getting into gaming, even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Robotech were pretty generic. It had a lot of holes in it, right? A nice framework. Dungeons and Dragons, it was a nice framework, but it didn't account for everything. In the 90s, a lot of these simulationist games kind of came out, where it's trying to make a rule for everything. I fell into that trap. I'm fully admitted. I ended up loving the simulationist games, except for they never did what I wanted them to at that time. So these trends change over time. So how do you foresee future trends between class-based and skill-based systems affecting your gaming choices? This is for Kartog still.
I don't know. I think the trend, as we talked in a previous encounter here, I think the trend is that the market's going to split into a mainstream market that's going to be like D&D basically, and the hobby. And the hobby is going to go in all sorts of different and interesting ways. And I think it could go either way. It could go either class or skill based, but I think skill based is probably going to be more popular in the hobby side of things. But I still see, a lot of other D&D clones and different versions.
What about the concept of like more story games, more games like Fiasco, more games like Cosmic Patrol, more games like Fate?
I think they're already incredibly niche. Like 5 people play these games, and I'm not kidding. Sometimes it is 5 people, like 5 dudes playing. What was the name? Hill Folk or whatever. And I don't think they'll ever have much more of a reach than that, because essentially they are just improv. They're just theater. And if you're gonna do that, just go to an improv class. I mean, most people come to role-playing games expecting a game of some sort, right? So if it doesn't present a game, most people are going to lose interest, even if they are like interested by the concept and they go like, oh, I wonder if this would work, like shared storytelling, whatever, blah blah blah. Eventually the sessions just, you're going to look and you're going to go like, oh, okay, maybe the concept was not enough. It's not enough to sustain something. So I don't think that's going to happen. What I think is the mainstream, the big companies, they're going to be the tendency of every single art that becomes mainstream is homogeneity, right? They're going to become more homogeneous over time. And this is what has been happening with RPG systems, right? Yep. They have become the mainstream, the big ones, right? Mm-hmm. The 800-pound gorillas. Yep. But the hobby can go in all sorts of different and interesting directions. That I think that's almost certainly going to happen, right? If it's not happening already. We have already a lot of different systems that do different things, and people are being creative without having to, cater to shareholders, essentially, right? Go ahead.
Okay.
What was the last new game that made a splash? I mean, Savage Worlds splash. I mean, a Pathfinder. When was the last new game?
I think Free League's done it.
Clone wasn't a derivative of it wasn't a rehash of an old system, wasn't a re-release, was a brand new game, and wasn't tied to an IP.
I don't know if Free League qualifies. I still think their RPGs are, I wouldn't say boutique, but they're still niche.
They're pretty popular.
They're a great company. They're very popular. But when was the last time you guys saw a game come out that was new and caught attention?
It's hard to think, man.
I'll wait, because it's been forever.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Because everybody always goes back to D&D or Pathfinder.
Or here's my D&D clone, or here's my, here's Heroic, my advancement of an old game that I love. Like we're kind of stuck in a world where the last big game changer, no joke, and I won't even count Pathfinder because it was a D&D clone.
Yep.
Was Savage Worlds.
Now it's been 20 years.
Yeah. We are stuck in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Look at what we see online. Look at all the videos we see. Look at all the conversation we see. Everybody's talking about the same shit over and over and over and over and over again.
But don't you think that's more on the mainstream side of things?
Well, okay, let me ask you a question. Do I give a flying fuck about Bob's indie game where we throw poker chips at each other's heads to decide who wins in a combat? No.
No, but it's not. But
no.
That's a strong
we're talking about the future of the industry. We're talking about the future of the hobby. Indie games will never be the future of the hobby anymore. They are the future of rock and roll with indie bands. Okay.
No, but
And
what I
indie
think,
movies will never be the future of cinema. And there's no such thing as indie TV shows because you need to have a network to go.
but I think there is a distinction to be made between the future of the industry and the future of the hobby.
No, I don't
those are
think
two
there is
different things.
because if it just comes down to indie shit, then there is no industry anymore, and the hobby just becomes a bunch of niche people. There needs to be fire that drives people forward. That's what 5e did. Like it or not, 5e drove the hobby forward.
And Bear, that's where you and I differ greatly because I would rather it be niche and
preference
small
aside, we're talking about the hobby. Preference aside, the
Fair.
problem is that if we do not have successful commercial and wide appeal role-playing games on the market, role-playing retracts once again to being a niche little hobby.
Please.
And your channel becomes unviable.
That's fine.
And my channel becomes unviable. And our publishing efforts become unviable because there's no market there for us anymore. And I hate to break the news to you guys, but if the hobby does not have a market, it will not survive in the long run. And all of us old fucks will die. And the younger generation will not come up to take our place because they'll have moved on to other things. And D&D will become about as popular or as memorable as a wheel with a stick or playing handball in an alleyway was for our grandparents. Do you understand? We need to have an actual viable commodity business industry moving forward to draw new people into the hobby who can then discover the vibrant indie games and discover the really interesting other stuff that's not the commercial things. But we don't have anything other than the constant recycling of the same ideas over and over and over and over and over again, creating a feedback loop where the noise to signal ratio is really not good for signal and really pronounced for noise. Now, you can disagree with me. I totally accept that, you guys can be wrong, and I'm happy to let you be wrong. But the point is this is what I see, and I see this as someone who's worked in media, who's worked in entertainment, who's worked in broadcasting. There is a point where your niche becomes so niche, it dies.
It's
It
funny
definitely
because
could happen. Go ahead, Max.
nope. You're on the panel. Go.
I was going to say it definitely could happen, but I still think there's room for RPGs to remain as a hobby, even if there's not a huge industry behind it. Because at points in the past, there wasn't a huge industry behind it, and it still existed as a hobby.
So you're not hearing the argument I made, and you're adding the word huge to it. I didn't say huge.
Okay, well, one of the things I do have to move on because this isn't our topic for tonight is a good one, and I let it go for a little bit.
What's the future of the hobby?
Yeah, well, fair. What is it? Well, it's supposed to be from between class-based and skill-based, but that's fair. I just want to make sure that we're keeping it on this.
All right, I'll save my ranting for segment 5, sir.
Here we go. So I actually, well, no, I'll bring that up later. So, Malachi, you still have not answered the question, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did I give you a follow-up? I think I did give you a follow-up, Kartog. Okay, yeah. Malachi, when deciding between class-based and skill-based tabletop RPG systems, what factors do you consider, and how do these systems align with your gaming style and preference?
Well, I think one thing is you have to understand the tone of the game you want to run. If you want to run a cinematic game, for me, I'm going to go right to Savage Worlds. If I'm going to run some gritty horror, I'm going to go for something like Call of Cthulhu. If I want to run epic fantasy or just some kind of fantasy, I'll probably go with a D&D style game. Tone, I think, is one of the big ones. Your group is also going to have some influence on that. What you can run as a GM will have influence on that. On the fly, I can run Savage Rifts much easier than I can run Palladium Rifts. I think those are, for me, the big things, and also I think the setting as well. I'm going to go a little counter here to Kartog. I ran Star Wars Saga Edition with guys that started with WEG, and to me, it felt like Star Wars. It was cinematic. They did cinematic things.
What era?
We were at. I always preferred running after the movies.
Okay, because nothing compares to the original trilogy than West End games. It just absolutely inspires the original movie. I would argue that the prequels, sequels, and all that other stuff, other games are probably better. D20, whatever, Fantasy Flight, whatever. But those original trilogy movies, nothing captures them like West End Games.
He's right.
What? You're not supposed to say that.
Well, I think
You're
that
right.
whether you go class or skill based, I think the players can have an impact on how it runs at the table.
You guys have answered almost all these other ones. I want to get you a good follow up. So here's one. I'm going to ask this for all of you, but Malachi, you start. But I'm going to ask this all of you. Remember, you're answering this for everybody out there. Have you ever blended elements of both system types, and how did that work out?
You mean as a...
He's in character.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
There you
trying
go.
to say,
There you go.
It's all
That's
good. It's
my
all-
role playing.
like, do you mean like... I'm trying to understand.
Have you ever blended skill? Okay, so how about this? And I'm not asking you to combine game systems, but have you ever played D&D and added more skills? Have you ever taken a BRP type game and said, you know what, we're gonna now I remember the dang term, niche. We're gonna protect the niches in here.
Okay.
Or I got a simple answer for you. I can give you your answer. Palladium. Have you ever?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, Palladium, I think, is a perfect example of a class-based system that implemented skills very well. And I think that's about the only time I would. I tend to be a pretty by-the-book GM when I run games. I may house rule or try different things, but it's mostly judgment calls where I do that kind of stuff.
Fair
I
enough.
try to be as by the book as I can.
Okay. So for the rest, nothing. I said nothing. Kartog and Bear, do you guys want to jump in on that? Is there anytime you guys have blended the two genres?
I did it in my BX. I added a skill system based on the Dyson Logos 2D6 system, but I completely changed it. Where basically you have a primary, secondary, and tertiary or other category for skills, and that determines at what level you're at, what you need to roll against on 2d6 to succeed or not, right? And then I took all their class skills and turned them into that. So thieving, bards, all of that, and I did that whole thing. And it worked great. It was fantastic.
Okay.
Worked really well.
I have
the one thing I did.
I do like that.
The one thing I did was when I was DMing third edition, D&D third edition, I not only added a bunch of skills, I added more skill points for all characters, because I thought that the skill points were not enough to actually.
What game was this?
Yeah, which game was this?
D&D third edition.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I gave more skill points to every character, and I added a bunch of skills. And I have to say, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't. I mean, it was D&D third edition. I was going to play more or less like that. But I have to stress, I only really DM'd third edition with the core books and whatever made sense for the setting that I was presenting. So I didn't allow I just bought the complete super book of champions here, and it has like this prestige class. No, don't mess with that. No extra feats, no extra skills. The ones that I add. The ones that they added in their own splat books, forget about it. And I think that game ran pretty well. It's just that by the nature of the system itself, it gets complicated, and when you get to higher levels, it starts being a chore DMing for that system. So that's basically it.
I think D&D in general can get a chore when you get up to higher levels. I think there's that sweet spot, depending on the edition.
Third edition was more of a problem with that, and especially, when you got to like 15th, 16th level, characters were a handful. And making NPCs was that was a chore. That was actually a chore.
Oh yeah, I think when it comes to skills and the D&D stuff, Saga did it the best with the WotC stuff. You pick a couple skills, okay. I think it was you had your level when you roll. Every other skill, you roll half your level. Kept it simple.
I also have to say that I strictly enforced occupations in Call of Cthulhu. I made them choose occupations. I didn't allow people to just spend their points willy-nilly. And I encouraged people to create characters that were let's say that would facilitate a small group working, because I always found fewer people interested in playing Call of Cthulhu, and so mostly my groups for Call of Cthulhu were like 4 players, while my other groups for D&D and especially for Star Wars were like 6, 8 players often. So there was a requirement for more capable characters in Call of Cthulhu, as much as this can sound counterintuitive, because there were fewer players to do things. And so sometimes I would even add a few points here and there just to give them a few more extra discretionary points so that they could, fulfill the roles that the party needed with fewer people. Right?
Okay. Or to get a chance to answer that? All right. Any final... So this question, I'd like you guys to answer in a succinct manner. This is kind of like your final thoughts for tonight. And I think it's pretty obvious to folks who have been watching. And we'll just start with Bear, just to make life easy, just to go across. We'll start with Bear. Do you prefer one system type over the other, and what are your reasons? And let's be somewhat succinct about this.
BRP, it's amazing. I can do most anything except supers with it, and I have a system for that of my own.
So if people don't know what a BRP is...
Basic role-playing by Chaosium. It is the core system for RuneQuest, Call of Cthulhu, Pendragon,
back in the day, Stormbringer.
Yeah, like tons of games. Or ElfQuest, which I backed, and I can't wait to get my stuff for that.
I did not back it, and I was an ElfQuest fan. Money.
Same.
Yeah. So, all right, Kartog, same question for you. Do you prefer one system type over the other, and what are your reasons?
No, I prefer whichever kind of system fits my setting better, and if it is down to the like really personal preference, I would probably pick skill based. But really, I'm just happy to play whichever system fits my world better.
Okay, and Malachi, do you prefer one system type over the other, and what are your reasons?
Nope, I'm the same as Kartog. Whatever works for my setting. That's the best way for me.
All right. Well, that was a good panel. We still got some chat to go through, folks. Don't leave quite yet. But this Sunday on RPG Digest, we're going to be continuing on with D&D Rules Cyclopedia. I'll be covering the Halfling and then the 2 optional human classes of Druid and Mystic. And then Heathen Dog will be covering the Rifter number 13, and he's decided to throw my entire schedule into disarray by having 4 topics instead of 3. No, that's totally cool. I'm glad he's doing that. And yeah, he's going to talk about like 13... I already forgot, 13 dark magics or something, or no, dark techno wizardry and 13 something spells. I don't know. It's going to be fun. It's for Palladium. It's all based on Friday the 13th theme and Q&A on luck in your game. So check that out. Next Friday on Game Master Insight, we're going to be talking about metagaming. Is it harmful or helpful? I've actually talked to people who believe that metagaming isn't even a thing and it's a made-up term, and other people think it's the worst thing, oh my God, on the planet, and you should never, ever do it, and people in between there. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to have Akito, also known as Timothy Farrelly, Phil the Thrill, and either Doc Flamingo or Mage's Music, probably Doc Flamingo unless he backs out for some reason, but I like having the extra possibility on there. So all good panelists. I look forward to that one. So check that out next Friday. And now let's take a look at some of our chat.
Hang on real quick. Metagaming is a made-up term, like all terms made up.
Well, non-existent, I guess, would be the...
Just love being pedantic with you.
Yeah. All right. So the reactionary principle game with Mr. Max Boyfon says, system matters a lot. It informs the tone of the game a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I can't agree because it's him. I'm not allowed to agree with him.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. Brian James, skill-based seems to fit modern and science fiction much better than fantasy. I don't know about better, but it's certainly harder to make classes in a modern and science fiction setting than it is in a fantasy setting.
I don't know. Skill-based seems to work pretty well for Warhammer Fantasy First Edition.
No. But we're looking at it from the other angle.
What do you mean?
Well, he said that's so. Yeah, skill-based can be in fantasy, no problem. It's harder to make class-based though for science fiction and modern.
I don't know. I think D20 Modern for a class-based game, I think they had the right train of thought where you have your base classes where there's just 6 base classes and they're each tied to an attribute, and that's where you get your stuff.
Is it really class at that point?
Well, see, it's a set. You have your fast hero, your tough hero, your strong hero. I mean, once you get out of just out of D&D, I think that for a class-based game, that is the best.
I guess when I think class, I think of bounty hunter, starship pilot, paladin, thief. I think of roles, not as in attributes.
Well, that's Star Wars Saga Edition. When you compare that to the previous ones, the previous one you had what? You had Jedi Guardian, Jedi.
You had like 4 or 5 different types of Jedi.
Right.
No, you also had failed Jedi. You had alien Jedi.
No. I'm just talking WotC Star Wars. Here.
D20, yeah.
And nobody
D20.
plays that crap.
So you had 3 Jedi classes. When they did Saga, they lumped them all into one, and you had your selection of abilities where you would go in. It's almost kind of like a subclass, but you could jump around as long as you went in order. Which they had something similar to that in the D20 Modern. I think, like I said, once you get out of fantasy, I think that kind of class-based system works better rather than trying to create a class for every role.
Well, they kind of noticed that they went wrong when they realized, oh, we created a Jedi that fights well with lightsabers and a Jedi that talks to people. I don't know why, but people are picking a lot more of the Jedi that beats people to death with a lightsaber. So it's like, yeah, let's make it just one class and let people specialize in whatever they want, right?
Yeah, it made more sense the way they did.
I guess I'd have to see it a little bit more in action, but I think that's too generic to be a class. But that's just my take. Maybe it's being a little pedantic on that one. I think of classes being more niche and more of a tighter role than that. But that could be a discussion
Jedi's
for another.
too generic?
Yes. What about Jedi Ace? Jedi Ace is not the same as a Jedi Sentinel.
That is where your selection of attributes determine what kind of Jedi you are.
Mm-hmm. And Grey Jedi isn't a Jedi, even though it has the word Jedi in the name.
Nope.
Which would be what I would play.
Where are people even coming up with that stuff? Anyway, that's
I think it came from some of the older novels, but I might be wrong about that.
No, I hadn't heard of
it. Universe.
Yeah, I was going to say I could have sworn it was in the Darth Bane novels.
That I don't know, but I know it came from novels.
Yeah, but it's later novels. It's like the novels from the 2000s.
Oh, they all suck. Come on.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they
Oops,
do.
I read that one. I think I accidentally deleted a comment I didn't want to. Oops. Anyway, Brian James, at the end of the day, you only need 7 character classes. You don't need skills at all. All these extra buttons and knobs that you offer to players will not increase their satisfaction.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Well, he should at least have named the 7 classes, right?
Yeah, and more importantly, my players that I play with love things like that, and one of them adores figuring out how the system works. So I think we can get rid of the grognard mentality that you just need the basics and that's all the game will have. No. People have different tastes. There are things I like that other people do not like. There are things other people like that I do not like. And it's the diversity of game choice that is available to us that makes it better. And that's what we need to be more open about and stop being niche-y. Because as the industry dies and the hobby contracts, we're going to need each other a lot more. And if we're busy fighting each other over which particular flavor of D&D we like, we're just going to do ourselves even a bigger disservice by alienating and tribalizing.
You can make a comparison to what happens with war games, for example. War games, you can go all the way from like ultra simple things like Risk, all the way down to like excruciating level, down to the platoon level detail with like Advanced Squad Leader. That's like you can find war games for all sorts of desires and all sorts of what kind of things people want to portray, and you will find a war game for it. I think RPG should probably do the same.
I generally agree with that. I think one of my complaints is one of the things I'm going to say in my final commentary is I don't like when people try to ham fist one style into another style. D&D isn't the end all be all to everything. If you don't like D&D, go play a different game. Stop trying to ham fist your concept of role playing or what a game should be into Dungeons and Dragons, which is why I don't like WotC, because it completely redesigned it from the ground up and it's not Dungeons and Dragons anymore. But that doesn't mean that it's inherently a bad game, even if it's not for me. It's just not Dungeons and Dragons. It should be WotC Fantasy role playing first, second, and third edition. You can snore all you want, but I don't care. Look, I seriously would rather the hobby die than have that nonsense, and I mean that in all seriousness.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Come on,
Yes.
man. You don't really feel that way. You're just being
No, I'm not. And I'm not going to talk about it in my final comments, but I'm definitely going to talk about it in segment 5. I absolutely do.
Okay. Let's fight it out, baby.
Coming in the war game genre that was at the core of where RPGs came from still is churning interesting settings. Having room to grow without the smothering corpse of D&D clones looming would do the hobby well. I actually agree with that. I don't think that D&D should be the 500 or the 800-pound gorilla that it is. It's a good place to start. And I don't mean that in, as I said earlier, baby's first role-playing game, but I don't think it should be the end-all, be-all of what role-playing is. It's got name recognition. It's a good place to start, but
let's face it, it's probably going to remain so for quite a while, right?
What's that?
I don't see. It's probably going to remain.
Well, yeah, because of the name recognition. Yeah,
for quite a while.
Pathfinder was on its way to doing a good job again until recent events. Apparently, I haven't followed that exactly, but I've heard a lot of people all of a sudden going off on Pathfinder. But that's a whole different story as well. So I got a couple more comments, but I'm going to save those for later till the segment 5. I deleted a couple I didn't want to delete. So that is going to be it. No, what I said was not a hot take. I mean that in all seriousness. If you don't believe me, stick around for segment 5. So for the folks that are watching right now, if you're watching this later on video, you're not going to see segment 5. You'll hear the theme song will end. For people watching the live stream, we'll be right back after the theme song plays. But before we do that, let me put up the banner here. Boop. Here we go. I want to thank the panel very much tonight. We have Kartog, Bear, Malachi. Whether you agree or disagree with any panelist, I sincerely hope their perspectives both entertained and educated you and gave you some food for thought for your future gaming sessions. In this case, the type of game you might want to play. If you enjoy this discussion, please like this video, subscribe to Legion of Myth, and to all the panelists whose links you can find in the description. Now, for my final comments. So I write my comments down while the stream's going on. So if they seem disjointed, that is why. These aren't curated, by an editor at any point here. First thing that I noticed, because of a couple comments that were put in there, yeah, this is a less game-specific topic, and we're going to do a bunch of these. We're going to have some very niche topics. We're going to have some less game-specific topics. We're going to have some very much game-specific topics. We covered the gamut of gaming here. So if this topic wasn't for you, well, last week we talked about... What did we talk about last week? I should know this. Last week we talked about Consequences, which is a really, really great episode. Before that, we talked about troop style play, which is another really great episode. Hopefully this one you guys consider great as well. I had a fun time tonight. So ultimately, I like both. I like both class and skill-based games. I really do. I think they both have a place. I think they both have meaningful gameplay. Just don't try to make one become like the other. The concept that things in D&D are reduced to an archetype, I'm for. Sometimes playing the trope is a good thing. It's supposed to emulate a fantasy novel. It's supposed to emulate the fantasy stories. That doesn't make them the only way to play, but it definitely makes it has a role in the genre. Whether it's was it Bear that said baby's first role playing game, which I kind of agree with to some extent, but it doesn't mean that. Oh, well, it's too limiting, and I'll get to that in a moment. On the flip side, one could argue that, hey, skill-based games can become too realistic. I'm not trying to play, my science teacher. I just want to play a game and have some fun. It's all going to be based on your style of play. I'm a little heavy on the role play side. So either way, I can make it work. Class-based games, well... They can be, they get gamified to some degree. Skill-based games become a little mundane real life. So they both have inherent strengths and weaknesses. I already said that. Okay, skill-based, I said that. Apparently I wrote this down twice. That was good. When I was younger, I preferred more simulationist. Now I like both. Just stay true to the game style. If you're playing BRP, basic role playing, if you're playing Chaosium, if you're, a Call of Cthulhu, just stick to the style of game. And a good game master is going to keep you on track with that anyway. I definitely do not agree with the concept that class-based games limit role-playing. Your character's personality, the style of play. I mean, one of the things we talk about quite a bit on here is a fighter in old D&D. And you can come up with more than these four. These four are just really easy to do. Is your fighter somebody who uses a two-handed sword, or is your fighter somebody who uses a sword and board? Does your fighter ride a horse, or does he use a bow and arrow? Or does he do a little bit of everything? That right there will help shape the style of your character. And then you play an actual character, not a character sheet, which is one of the things that I think that skill-based games I've seen lead to. Not that it does. I'm just saying it leads to in the less role-play heavy people. They end up playing a character sheet more than they end up playing a character. What about a timid fighter, a drunken priest, a battle mage? A lot of games bring those as classes now with skill sets. I get it, but you can do that even in old school D&D based on your skill selection, just how you play the character. So there's many many options outside just the skill trope. I can't read my writing. What the hell is that? Yeah. One of the things that I say is when you're playing a class-based game, it tends to be more of a game than a life simulator. Life simulators are fine. Games are fine. Some lead one direction, some lead the other direction. Just use the right tool for the right job. Earth-Dawn disciplines, I hear this a lot. Oh my God, those disciplines are so close-minded because they force a trope on you. There's literally a discipline violation if you go against the trope of the discipline. I actually think that encourages role-playing within the proper trope because you can come out with unique characters. Quickly, the Swordmaster. Everybody thinks, well, the Swordmaster just has to be a swashbuckler. Well, you can have the swashbuckler Swordmaster. That is the archetype. That is the stereotype, right? Well, what about the Stickmaster from 2nd edition? It's kind of like it's almost like what Yoda was in Attack of the Clones. Quiet, calm, reserved. But when the fight's on, he becomes the showman during the fight. The Axe Master that I created, which is like I always visualize as an orc, but it's a pro wrestler type. You don't expect he goes out there without armor on. He goes out there bare chested, ready to go. He's swinging off the ropes, but man, can he use that axe and his words to really mess with you in a fight. So yeah, the showman can be brought out in different ways. Think about how to do that in your class-based games. I already said that. Skill-based games definitely have the benefit of versatility. And if that's what you're looking for in your game, then I highly encourage you going with that, as long as you help your players to not necessarily play character sheets. Yes, and class-based games definitely encourage 2D thinking a lot of times, but again, a good game master and a good play group will encourage players to play characters. The last thing that I already actually made a comment on, the only thing that I'll say here is that I mentioned I'd say it before, so I will say it again. Earth-Dawn Legend points. Yeah, you can't run out of points in that. And you can spend legend points on talents, on your skills, on magic items, on group patterns, on talent knacks, on all types of abilities. Oh, I want to become a quester, which is like a cleric. Oh, I want to become a light bringer, which is like a paladin, I guess. You have so many things that you can spend your points on. You do not have to linearly progress in that game. You'll always have points. So it's not something that I would worry about in that game. It is a fantastic way. And ultimately, circles, you do level up in that game. They're called circles. But circles are from... You don't ding and then get skills. Your circle proves that you can do stuff. So you increase your skills, you increase your talents, whatever. And then once you're at a certain capability level, boom, now you're considered that circle. Think of it like martial arts. You have to take your test to get a certain belt. Well, that's how it works in Earth-Dawn. I like that system. So even though it is very much class-based. And everything else, because that was kind of a long concluding thought there with you just looking at a screen. But I thought it was a great panel tonight. I love the agreements. I love the disagreements. I think that all these game systems work for everybody. And with that, I hope, remember, folks who are watching the live stream, stick around. We'll be right back. This is for the video side of it. But I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful week.